Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Logical, Plausible, Probable. I'm your host, John Maddox, and tonight we're having another stream you just won't want to miss. If you got what it takes, click that link, but prepare yourself, for this arena is not for the weak. Now, let the mental combat begin, but always make sure your arguments are LPP.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to yet another after show here on Logical, Plausible, Probable. It's turning into a regular thing. There's just too many debates going on, too many arguments, too many random discussions, and too much fun and frivolity to be had over here in the after shows where we oftentimes degenerate into dumpster fires, but occasionally have good conversation, good dialogue, and some good expansion of the topic, the things that were discussed in the debates, and who knows where we may end up. It should be a good time. For those of you who are joining for the first time, as usual, we will keep the initial portion of the after show in kind of a go around the panel, and everybody kind of gets, 30, 40 seconds to talk about their thoughts on the debates, best one-liners, best comebacks, best overall zingers and points, who won the arguments, all that kind of fun stuff. And we'll kind of do that in a round robin. And then if nobody new has joined, then we'll go into open discussion. But then if new people hop in, then we'll everybody will shut up real quick. At least I may have to tell them to shut up, but we'll try and hopefully will get people to be quiet. Let the new addition to the panel air their thoughts about the debate, and then we will get into the go back to the discussion. Okay, so let me go ahead and start bringing people into the panel as usual. Jackson, other than I think once or twice, Jackson was first. Then we got Luca, one of the debaters, and James is here. And I think Paleologos was in the backstage, then he dropped off somewhere. So if you want to come back in, feel free to. Anybody in the side chat who wants to join the panel and share their thoughts, the link is pinned at the top of side chat, and I will post it occasionally into the normal chat as well. But like I said, if you want to come on in, hit that link and we will get things going. All right, without further ado, Jackson, what's up, man? Welcome to the stream. What are your thoughts about the debate? And I'm guessing you have a little something you want to share about Ukraine and the Russia conflict.
Yeah, I like the debate, good discussion. But Donny was triggering me with all of his fossil talk. We'll maybe get into that later. But yeah, some stuff in Ukraine's heating up. Russia tried to take the Europe's largest nuclear power plant. I was watching live on the live screen. They were shooting at it with BTR-80s, I think, which like 50 caliber machine guns, basically. So not good. I think they were pushed out. It looks like there are 3 destroyed vehicles in the live stream. But another thing, Lindsey Graham is calling for Putin to be assassinated. A bunch of people are calling for NATO to step in. So it's going to escalate pretty bad, I think. So that's why I have World War III in my name tonight.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw the Lindsey Graham thing with Hannity, and then Hannity is actually the one the other night who was calling for a combined NATO airstrike and then have nobody take credit for it.
Yeah, very stupid.
So that Putin wouldn't know who to retaliate against. It's like, really?
That's just
really?
idiotic.
I mean, I'm at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I am coming to the very rapid conclusion that the world is run by full-scale morons, or they are actively attempting to make World War III happen. I mean, at this point, there's like no in between. Like, hey, I want to. Let's think about this for a second. Like, if Putin's, defense minister or something was saying, like, I want President-elect, maybe not really president, but needs to be retired, leader of the Americas to be assassinated. Right? Like, are you kidding me? That would be viewed as a direct threat. You have Anonymous claiming to hack their satellites and such.
Yeah, they didn't.
And, they may be lies, but there's always they're attacking them, right? They're attempting to. And in any context, that is considered an act of war if they're being, supported by any countries. Which, let's get real, there's a very strong probability they are being supported by, different globalist groups. So anyway, all right, we'll get back to that in a few minutes. Okay, up next, Luca, the one and only, who is staying up past his bedtime. It's now like almost 5 o'clock in the morning his time, I think, and he's still here. So what's up, Luca? How you doing, man? What are your thoughts on the debate?
Yes, I was quite happy to do the debate. I think I did well. Of course, I can still improve, but I did my presentation with one thing in mind. I'm trying to get people to reason, and I want to give good evidence, and I'm trying to get in their mind. Let's say that I do not want to indulge in evidence too complex to people to understand, because I can get it. It's hard to understand science when you are not into it. So I always try to explain to my best possible, do my best to explain those things and to get things interesting as much as I can. So I yelled.
Well, appreciate that, Luca, and I know you always do always do try to bring it, and I greatly appreciate the fact that you actually put together presentations and make substantive arguments, because the vast majority of the people that I've debated have not, and most of them they may issue maybe a minute and a half, maybe up to 3 or 4 minutes tops of position. It's not actually making arguments, and it's a bunch of fluff. So I do appreciate that very much. Okay, up next we've got James, then Paleologos. What's up, James? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. What are your thoughts on tonight's debate?
Hey, how you guys doing? Luca, you're an absolute trucker for staying up for hours and hours to do the debate. It was good. Obviously, like the idea of evolution, it doesn't really convince me, and it's it's not you that's like presenting it incorrectly. Just using logic that I've known. It just doesn't seem logical to assume that we've either come from an amoeba, come from a single cell organism or whatever, or that we've come from ultimately, like apes or Neanderthals or whatever. It just doesn't really make sense. And I understand where you're coming from, but, the scripture in 1 Timothy talks about the fact that, people that we should minister, that people are ministering endless genealogies, and this idea of like, well, this is where this person traces their lineage from. That's not godly edifying. So, that's, ultimately, like, we should just be focusing on, basically the here and now. I mean, we could study the past, obviously, but like the evidence, honestly, it doesn't seem like it points to evolution, right? I mean, I don't know, but yeah, thanks.
Appreciate that, James. All right, up next we've got Peter, also known as Paleologos. What's up, man? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? What are your thoughts on tonight's debate?
Hello, how's it going? Yeah, great debate, Luca and Donny. I enjoyed it. Ultimately, I thought this was a kind of interesting debate because it came down to a fundamental disagreement over basically the two main topics that you brought up, right? Both the endogenous retroviruses and the fossils. And ultimately, there seemed to be, basically this fundamental disagreement about the nature of both of those things. And yeah, I certainly thought you both did a good job. But right now, I think I'm leaning towards kind of Donnie's idea about the Sediba, Afarensis, Habilis, Rudolfensis all being chimeric as a little bit of a rescue device. That's kind of my thought.
All right, appreciate you sharing your thoughts there. Let's see. Up next, we've got Tony, then Jason, then TJ, then Donnie. So, what's up, Tony? Welcome to the stream. How you doing, man?
What's up, man? I just wanted to ask Luca if he watched the James Tor video link that I sent him on the David Deemer's work. Basically, it's just what I thought. He purchases all his nucleotides in high concentrations, and he never got functional RNA.
I did, and I'm not impressed by that, because okay, even if he did, and I did not find that in the paper, and I send you the paper,
But that's what he used.
It was, sorry, Tony, let me finish. Even if he did, and it's probable he did, it was not a part of the experiment. His experiment started with those compounds, so he was not needed to produce them themselves.
So you can have 100% yield of nucleotides in an experiment in pure form. That's BS, Luca, and you know it.
We do have mechanism for that. We have discussed that on our
No, you
Luca
don't.
versus Tony, round 2.
No, you don't, Luca. That's a bunch of garbage. That's like finding pure white sugar out in nature. We have companies that have to produce white sugar for a reason, because it's not going to be found in nature in high concentrations, just like those nucleotides that David Deemer purchased. It's as simple as that. And you didn't watch the video, as usual.
Yes, I did.
What did Tor say?
On what? That he
Just what I asked
purchased the nucleotides. Okay,
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, and he never
The
got functional RNA,
most
just as I
important
thought.
thing. No. Let me finish. The most important thing that I didn't like on the video, that it was that Tour said that there were no tests on the results, and I read the paper, and they run electro. Oh, I'm too tired for this.
Because it's
two
a bunch
kind
of garbage, Luca,
experiments.
and you didn't even watch it as usual, just as I thought.
Spectroscopes. Sorry, I cannot speak at this hour. Two kind of tests. I will write about it. Spectroscopy. Oh, okay, I'm done. Sorry, guys. Read the paper. Two kind of tests to look at what kind of genes they were there, and they were some genes there, and want to understand the kind of molecules inside the vesicles. So that was quite huge for me.
No, he never produced any vesicles, Luca.
Yes,
He never produced anything close to a protocell.
All right.
Yeah,
We'll get back to this. We'll get back to this in a minute, gentlemen. We'll go back to the side debate here in just a moment.
If you could play that video later, Maddox, I'd appreciate it. It's only about a 2-minute answer by Tor, but thanks.
Okay, if you can you link me and
Yeah.
timestamp me?
Yeah, I can. It's 1 hour 9 minutes on the latest video, the one where he's holding an axe. You want me to send you the link?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, up next we got Jason. What's up, man? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? What are your thoughts on tonight's debate? And I mean, by tonight's debate, I mean the one between Donny and Luca, not Tony and Luca that just happened.
No, I'm just passed by me. I'll jump in later. I'm busy doing something at the moment. Is that all right?
Oh yeah, no problem. No, Jason, you're in timeout, buddy. You weren't ready to speak on the fly, on command. You're in timeout now. You're banished. All right, up next we got TJ and then Donny. What's up, TJ? How you doing? Welcome to the stream, man. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, shoot, it was a decent debate, as I said time before. I'm not a science man, but I can still kind of get the general concepts of things. I ain't gonna lie, I watched like 75% of it. You know what I'm saying? But for what I've seen, it did look pretty interesting. Definitely a more interesting debate for evolution's side than a lot of the broken records that I've heard before. So I will give it that. But I do think SFT was kind of, I didn't finish it, but it looked like he might have been cleaning up on that one. But overall it was pretty good. But I'm just waiting to see what this dumpster fire will evolve into. Last time we were talking about flat earths and oh man, but yeah, it was good though.
Right, I appreciate that. Well, everybody's got to start looking. I think people are starting to get a little bit too excited for dumpster fires. I mean, I know I've been promoting them as dumpster fires, but I think I may have started to create a partial addiction to post-debate demagoguery and dialogue, but we shall see. Okay, last but certainly not least, Donny, what's up, man? Welcome to the stream. I don't know if you saw my comment close to the end, but I was
I did.
suggesting that you go to short and pithy. I was like, man, poor Luca over here. It's like it's the middle of the night for him, and Donny is like, he's responding to questions longer than his opening statement. I mean, it was like, what the heck is going on here? But anyway, what's up, man? Welcome to the stream. How you doing? What are your thoughts on tonight's debate?
Bro, when you got 500 slides you prepared, you just want to get them all in, you know, the best way you can. So, no, it was a lot of fun. One of my favorite topic is ancestry, whether it's human evolution, whether it's universal ancestry, whatever. Just ancestry is my favorite topic. Luke and I, we've been planning like an actual formal debate now, like I think for a year, because Luca, remember you came on my channel about a year ago and we had like an informal debate, but this was our formal debate, and we scheduled it a couple months ago to in order to allow for a solid debate, and I enjoyed it. And like you said, John, I appreciate and respect that Luca comes with presentations, comes with arguments worth discussing, because John, I mean, as you know, most of our debates are kind of like, you know, the evolution doesn't really bring too much or they'll say I don't know to most points. Jackson wrote, I'm just kidding, Jackson. No, Jackson makes for good debates too. But yeah, Luca, he made for a good discussion. So I really enjoyed it. And one thing I'll say, and Peter, I appreciate your words that you enjoyed the debate, and I appreciate you, Peter. But I think, Peter, you're missing the point that I make typically. And I thought I made this clear in the opening statement, is I demonstrate directly from the paleoanthropologists themselves, right, that every single finding and every single data point when it comes to human evolution in the field of paleoanthropology is contested and debated. The opinions from these experts are fragmented. Okay, and when I say debated, I mean hotly debated. I probably spent over the last month preparing for not only this debate, but upcoming presentations and books we have, just hours and hours and hours worth of, I literally just watched a debate between actually I think it was 3 paleoanthropologists on the status of floresiensis, and they all had different opinions, and they all admitted that the hominid, the fossil evidence, it's very fragmentary, and they're just hoping for more discoveries. Now, this is right from their mouths, and the reason why I point this out is to show that fossil evidence, okay, it's low quality, it's low confidence science. And that's why I point out that it's the genetic data that's the best way to determine and answer this question of ancestry. And it just so turns out that genetics has confirmed separate ancestry and refuted universal ancestry. We can look to the Y chromosome, we can look to linkage blocks, we could look to mitochondrial DNA, we could look to taxonomically restricted genes, and we can determine that humans are not related to any other form of life. And that's what's inherited sperm and egg. You know, these fossils, these fragments, they are not inherited sperm and egg, and they're low quality. I don't think we should be dedicating all of our time to low quality science. We should focus on high quality science. And that's my point I'm making. Anyways, I yield.
Hey, Donny, speaking of kind of the genetic similarity, you mentioned during the debate that modern humans are 99.9% similar to one another. And what do you do then with the fact that Neanderthals are only 99.7%, whereas modern humans are 99.9% similar to one another? So what do you do with that, since Neanderthals, genetically speaking, are outside of the range of genetic variation seen in modern humans?
Well, that's a good question. And I debated that exact question 3 times, one with Dan Stern-Cardinal, one with Walking Fish, and then one with David Neff. And for one, you said it, 99.7%, and we're all 99.999% similar. But here's the thing, and I had Dr. Rob Carter on the channel about a year ago to discuss this exact question. Neanderthals were the most inbred people group that have ever existed. Their rungs of homozygosity are massive. They're also older than us today, modern Homo sapiens, okay? Which means if they were immediate post-flood, they would already start off with a different set of biodiversity. They'd already have unique sets of biodiversity, not to mention patriarchal drive, which Dr. Rob Carter has written a ton about, where you have people who are living hundreds of years old. They would accumulate more mutations and pass on more mutations through the germ cell lines, which means the founder of Neanderthals, okay, could have started off with a whole bunch of new mutations, not to mention the environmental conditions that they lived in, these harsh, cruel environments, okay, where they were surrounded by nothing but darkness. I just watched a lecture from a paleoanthropologist who talked about these Neanderthals. Every single one of their bones, for the most part, are found with a fracture. They had a broken bone and it healed. And they lived in horrible conditions, darkness, which means lack of certain vitamins like vitamin D. So there's a good chance, I would predict, if we looked hard enough, we would probably find mutations in very important DNA repair enzymes. And what that means is mutations can accumulate quickly in a small population, not to mention recessive mutations can come to the forefront. And guess what? They become fixed. You have rapid fixation, which means you have, as expected, differences in Neanderthal genetics. And I think that perfectly explains why they're slightly different. They're not that different, but why they're slightly different from modern humans today. That's about 2 hours worth of information in 2 minutes. So I hope.
Donny, my issue with that is that, yes, I agree with everything that you just said, but that doesn't change my argument, because I'm arguing that perhaps Neanderthals were inbred. I think we have probably pretty good evidence that they are, but why can't they be an inbred species by themselves? The fact that they're inbred doesn't mean that they can't be their own different species, because when you have a small population, as you mentioned, and you have mutations getting fixed faster, speciation can occur more rapidly.
Well, I think those are good points. John, if you could share my screen. See, the problem is...
Hang on. So, ladies and gentlemen, formal announcement of a record that has just been set. We are at 27 minutes and 22 seconds into this stream, and we are already in share screen mode. So...
Oh, I got some slides too.
Bam, here we go. Is there going to be a slide measuring contest between Donny and Peter tonight? We don't know, but it could definitely happen. Who has more slides to share? I don't know yet, but I guess we might find out. Go ahead, Donny.
I appreciate. Yeah, no, that's funny. It won't be once my wife yells downstairs the spaghetti is ready. I'm running upstairs because I'm hungry. So, yeah, I don't think it can be denied anymore that Neanderthals were inbred. You know, we have their genetics, and there's really paper after paper commenting on this. Here's just one reference. Inbred Neanderthals left humans a genetic burden. Neanderthal genome included harmful mutations, 40% less reproductively fit, genetic cost of Neanderthal introgression. But the one paper from Eric Trinkhaus, which really goes into their levels of homozygosity, I believe it's here, but I've also got a bunch of screenshots, but for sake of time, I won't pull it up. So this goes into an abundance of developmental anomalies and abnormalities in Pleistocene people by Eric Trinkhaus. So why can't you consider it a different species? I mean, I feel like you're just giving the evolutionists too much leeway, playing on their terms. I mean, let's look at the genotype, as I always point out, because we can see incredible variation of phenotype just based on environment. Again, I was watching a lecture from Lee Berger himself, which he talked about the cold ecoglacial environment playing a huge role in Neanderthal adaptations, as in it was almost primarily epigenetic and environment. Okay, so you could have pretty huge variations just based on environment, but not much going on the genotype. But what we see in terms of the differences in Neanderthal genotype really does have to do with genetic degeneration, inbreeding, levels of heterozygosity going down to more levels of homozygosity, rapid fixation of deleterious mutations, harmful mutations. I mean, and as a result, the phenotype's a reflection of the genotype, you have these anomalous features popping up. But here's the thing, to call that a new species, it's like on a genotype level, if you want to call a new species being the result of rapid genetic degeneration due to isolation and inbreeding and environment, sure. But I mean, evolutionists, for their type of speciation that they want to push, you know, they would define macroevolution as change above or at the species level. So, you know, but on the genotypic level, we're seeing genetic degeneration. We're seeing loss of allelic variability, you know, and here humans have low genetic diversity. So I don't even think they have the capabilities of massive amounts of variation like animals and plants do. So, you know, it's probably up to debate. It's probably more semantical, really. I wouldn't call it a new species. You know, maybe I could see, well, no, with Neanderthals, I could show you a ton of quotes right now from paleoanthropologists. I could pull up the lecture that I was just watching from 4 months ago, where the speaker, a secular evolutionist, he said, no, Neanderthals are us. We're the same species, debate at best subspecies, but not a different species. No, I don't think that that's defensible. Not even if you're an evolutionist. Even the evolutionists agree. Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, same species. Go ahead. I said a lot there. Take your time.
Well, some evolutionists agree, but I mean, like, you could find people to claim anything. But here's my issue. It has never been proven that deleterious mutations can lead to Neanderthal morphology. You brought up in specific dark environments, and I think you were kind of going back to Rudolf Virchow's ideas, kind of a father of immunology, if I'm correct. But his thoughts about the Neanderthals were that they were people who had rickets. And one reason why he thought that is because the Neanderthal femora has a unique curvature in terms of the posterior aspect, which in fact is quite different from that seen in people with rickets, where it's to the side that the femur bends rather than posteriorly. But based off of that incorrect kind of diagnosis of rickets, Rudolf Virchow claimed that Neanderthals were people with rickets. Is that what you were saying?
No, I don't think it's as simple as that. I'm talking about how environment, inbreeding, shifts from heterozygosity to homozygosity, and the manifestation of deleterious recessive mutations can lead to rapid morphological degeneration. That's pretty well understood. We also understand the effects of reductive evolution on small inbred populations. Have a look at Floresiensis, have a look at Naledi, have a look at Luzonensis. That can result in small body size, small brain size, curved fingers. It can result in a ton of anomalies. We also know that lack of,
let's say, that those things were the result of that? That is my question. How do you know that those features are the result of those mutations?
Well, I showed a quote. I don't know if you looked at in my opening statement. I showed a quote from, I can pull it up here, where he points out. Let me see here. He points out that a lot of these pathologies, these hominids were living in a different time, different conditions, different than today. So if you have an erectus that's degenerating morphologically, it's going to be different than a modern. It's going to have different effects in phenotype than if it's a modern Homo sapiens today that's experiencing that. John, share my screen. I'll show this quote. So this one's from
Hang on. So the first screen share was at 27 minutes. The second one was at 34 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, I know. When people are asking for evidence, it's hard to not just screen share. So here we go. Oxnard. Here's where it actually came from. You know, evolution is like, oh, you quote mine. Well, I went, found the book, found the quote. It is remarkable that so many features similar to those normally present in great apes and Australopithecus and Paranthropus and early Homo erectus to some degree, so on and so forth, but not in modern H. sapiens, are generated in humans by growth deficits due to the absence of thyroid hormone. You know, this is just one of them, cretinism. In other words, many of the pathological features of cretinism mimic the primitive characters of evolution, making it easy to mistake pathological features for primitive characters. So listen, my point is, if you want to focus so much on low quality, low confidence data to answer the question of ancestry, go ahead. But it's based on massive amounts of imagination, inference, assumptions. Okay, that which is supposedly or assumed to be primitive or basal may actually be just the result of morphological degeneration. And if we see on a genetic level that we're dealing with a people group that is the most inbred that has ever existed on the planet, 40% less fit than modern humans, not to mention their environmental conditions, which suggest that they were low in important vitamins, including vitamin D, incredibly low in terms of just so many things based on the environment that will allow for rapid fixation of new mutations. I really don't think it's a huge stretch to say that the degeneration that we know for a fact exists in their genetics, let's say Neanderthal specifically, would not also manifest itself in the phenotype, in the physical features. I mean, to say no, to say it wouldn't, I mean, that's the stretch. Go ahead.
Hey, I have a question real quick for Donny.
Well, I think Peter wanted to, we want to be fair. Have Peter have the last word there on that one, because he's been very respectful. And then Jackson, you go.
Okay, what I'm saying is we can tell the difference between cretinism and morphology. In other words, we can look at Neanderthals and we can see when they had bone diseases, because bone diseases leave behind evidence of pathology on the bones themselves, and we can tell that. There is a difference, and we can see in the fossil record what is pathology and what is not pathology. And I think that you are equating the two a bit.
Well, Peter, can you explain to the audience the meaning of founder effects in a population?
Absolutely. A founder effect happens when a population comes from a very narrow group, a starting group of organisms, which can have some unique features as compared to kind of the rest of the ancestral population. And thus, the population which those individuals give birth to eventually becomes quite distinct and isolated from other populations.
That's right. I appreciate that. So here's the thing. It's not like, well, this individual, suffers from, cretinism, low thyroid hormone, and this guy has, arthritis, and this guy. No, it's population wide. These morphological features, these degenerative anomalous features have become fixed in the population. For example, these island dwellers like Naledi, Luzonensis, and Floresiensis. I correct myself on Naledi. Naledi is more of just an isolated people group as compared to the other two. But the other two experience the effects of reductive evolution as a result of being isolated and inbred on these islands, where eventually the population shifts towards these anomalies, these anomalous features being the norm. Like that's what makes up the population. And again, you'd have to deal with right here. I'll share my screen for the third time, John. I know, I'm sorry.
Do you know how crazy it is, though, to claim that an entire population of people had cretinism? Like, that is a kind of absurd
claim. I'm not saying the entire population of people had I'm just pointing out that various pathologies, okay, and then obviously morphological degeneration population-wide, especially if it's just a tiny little population, can be mistaken as primitive or basal or pre-human, when in fact it's just morphological degeneration. Okay, just saying one guy has cretinism within the population. No, we're just showing that pathology can result in typically what we see. But our model of post-Babel dispersal would say that these subpopulations, these features became fixed because of generation after generation of deleterious mutations coming to the forefront, leading to reductive evolution. Here's the thing. When you have these subpopulations, like let's say Floresiensis on an island, well, let's say you have Erectus, okay, that gets onto the island and becomes isolated, inbred, mutations come to the forefront, so on and so forth. Well, guess what? The first thing natural selection is going to deal with is brain size, because brains are energetically costly. Okay. And when you're when you're short of food and resources, then guess what? Eventually, over time, the brain is going to shrink in order to conserve energy so that population can live in an environment where it doesn't need to consume as much food and it doesn't need to consume as much resources.
But once again, that's just called adaptation to your environment. I don't see why you have to call that.
It's reductive. It's going from a bigger brain to a smaller brain because of your environment. It's reductive evolution. It's well understood in the
Yes,
literature.
but it's evolution that is beneficial to the organism. Well, let me bring
It's not beneficial because these groups went extinct.
Yes,
I want you to
well,
deal with
it
this
is.
paper.
You don't know why they went extinct, though. It is beneficial to the organism because it allows the organism to survive in an environment where they might not otherwise survive because their brain might consume too much energy.
Well, see, no, that's wrong. Because here's the thing. We see it in Lenski's bacteria is they are experiencing reductive evolution. They're losing genes short-term for adaptive purposes. Okay. We can apply that to Floresiensis or Naledi. Short-term adaptation, reduction in brain size, results in long-term degeneration. Guess what? Lenski's bacterial populations, they've all shrunk in functional genome size. And that's what you see in these hominid people groups. And I would predict, since we don't have their genetics yet, that if we did get their genetics, we would see an abundance of harmful mutations. We would see high levels of do you think a population can just go on for prolonged periods of time with massive rungs of homozygosity? Of course not. You can't just inbreed yourself into a greater population. Look at these inbred people groups today. Go ahead.
Let me bring up the example of the Neanderthals. Neanderthals follow these effects known as Bergman and Allen's rules, which kind of govern exactly how body size and limb size looks in comparison, to the latitude in which an organism lives. How is that an example of genetic degradation when Neanderthals appear to have adapted to their environment and become shorter, stockier, and more muscular?
Right. That's a good question. And I talked about that in my opening statement. The environment has allowed them. And remember, if Neanderthals were founded by an early biblical patriarch, as I pointed out earlier from your first question, they would already start with a whole bunch of new mutations. If they were earlier, closer to the flood, then again, they would start off with unique sets of biodiversity, but they'd probably have more genes for longevity. If they're closer to the flood, they probably originally have, let's say if they were Heidelbergensis, let's say, their genome has less harmful mutations, because the Neanderthals we look at today, based on these studies where they left humans a high genetic burden, they are the end stage Neanderthals. They are the Neanderthals that are the most homozygous. But if we looked at, say, the genetics of Heidelbergensis or an example of Neanderthals before what we see now, the end stage Neanderthals, we'd probably see less harmful mutations. So yeah, they go into these environments, and environment allows for rapid adaptation through epigenetic means. They're more robust, they're massive, their eyesight is great, because remember, they're still retaining probably much of their longevity genes in their early biblical patriarch that maybe they were founded from. But over time, you still lead to more and more degeneration.
I see no practical way that your view can be distinguished from speciation.
Is that your only argument, is you want to call them a different species?
No, I'm simply saying...
Is that your main contention?
No, I'm saying you are arguing that they aren't a separate species, but at the same time, you're saying that all the things which make new species in terms of Neanderthals did not make a new species. So what is the difference between speciation and genetic degradation?
Well, firstly, and that's a good question, I do want to point out for the audience sake through visual form. Okay, these are, just snippets from Smithsonian and non-young Earth creation related sources. Our genes suggest that modern humans interbred with Neanderthals, and that's led some anthropologists to claim Homo neanderthalensis should be considered a subspecies of Homo sapiens rather than a separate species. You can read this. What does it mean to be human? So on and so forth. I mean, by the biological definition of species, we have their genes, we interbred with them, we produce fertile offspring. We are the same species. I would say it's more appropriate to refer to Neanderthal as a degenerative variation of humans. I mean, I don't know why you want to call. I see your point, but I think a lot of it is semantical, because I oftentimes point to the new species of Darwin's finches on the Galapagos Island that was that speciated due to shifts in heterozygosity to homozygosity. New hybrid species, and they're probably interfertile with the parent population. So are we going to call that a variation of finch, a new variation, a new species? I don't know. I think it comes down to semantics, but all I can do is point out the fact that many paleoanthropologists say Neanderthals are the same species, and on a genotypic level, we know that their differences from us is mostly due to degeneration, rapid fixation of new mutations.
My issue is that you're once again equivocating speciation with these degenerative things. And so while you're willing to accept speciation and other things, for some reason, you seem to be kind of unequal in how you're using the term speciation, because in other animal kinds, you're willing to say that all these things that you're saying about humans led to speciation. But for some reason, when you get to humans, you immediately don't want to say that.
Well, that's because I wouldn't predict speciation from humans, because from the biblical model, God creates two human beings, Adam and Eve. That limits the amount of variation you can get. Okay, that's why we have low genetic diversity. The evolutionist has a post hoc, ad hoc, ridiculous idea that there is this massive population bottleneck in Africa that reduced levels of heterozygosity. I mean, I've had whole debates on that, how unfeasible that is. We can get into that at a different time.
We better let some other people talk, but we can get back to this.
Well, I just want to make the point that people understand. Okay, and this is the model that I would share with people like Jensen and Carter. God created a planet full of animals, massive amounts of animals. That's why the evolutionists will oftentimes say, well, there's more variation in the felid species that you would say are of the same kind. But yet you don't want to say humans and chimpanzees are related, even though there's less variation. And I typically say, yeah, because God created a planet full of animals, which means we would predict higher levels of diversity and a greater ability for variation in animals and plants, with a lower ability to vary in humans.
What did you mean by the felid species?
Well, you'd have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. You'd have species of cats within the greater family of cats, lions, tigers,
so you're not
cheetahs.
saying felid is a species. You're saying species of felids.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Species within the family that we would say belongs to the same created kind. So cheetahs, house cats, lions, tigers, there's more variation within those species. And yet we would say as a creationist, they belong to the same created kind. But humans and chimpanzees have less variation between them, but we would say they're not of the same created kind. Well, why is that? Isn't that inconsistent? Well, no, from our starting point, that's exactly what we would expect.
No, see, you are being inconsistent here, because when we talk about diversification of felids, for an example, founder's effect, mutations, all of that, as well as, possibly genetic heterozygosity, all of that can explain speciation within felids. All of those processes can work the exact same way they do in felids in humans. So why aren't you consistent then in your application that if you believe new species of felids can arise, why can't new species of humans arise? That's my question.
Okay, so it's your contention then that there are different species of humans, and you don't like my criteria for...
No, I'm just saying you're being inconsistent, because you're saying...
I don't think so.
Yes, you are, because you're saying felids can speciate. You believe that felids have speciated.
Guys, Jackson is trying to speak for quite
Let's
some
let
time
somebody else
now.
go.
No, wait. No, I want to say one thing, because it comes down to semantics. The evolutionists want to say that these different cat variations are different species. Sometimes I think we're giving them too much credit. We say the word species, we say the word speciation because we're talking to an evolutionist. And I know for myself, I read a lot of their literature and I want to talk in their language so they understand. But when it comes down to it, what are we really dealing with? new species or just a variation within the same kind? Because again, when we look to the genotype, we are not seeing anything that is going to help the type of speciation that evolutionists want to be true based on large scale evolution. Okay. So here's the thing. If tigers and lions and cheetahs and whatever, if they can interbreed, they're an interbreeding population, it's probably better just to say variation in the same kind. Neanderthals and humans, we have their genetics. We interbred with them. Okay. Many paleoanthropologists say Neanderthals are us. We are the same species, even according to them. So it's a variation of humans, but we actually understand that they are a variation due to degeneration, due to founder effects, due to environmental adaptation and morphological degeneration. I mean, you can call them a different species, but I think that's given the evolution way too much.
My point right now is not to
All
argue.
right. Listen, I think there's going to be like screen sharing that's going to happen again if we don't stop this. So, Jackson, what's up, man?
I have a question. I have a question for Donny about the criteria. What criteria would a say half ape, half man, so to speak, have a transitional form? What criteria, like skeletally, would it have?
Well, you could probably answer your own question, Jackson. What's the definition, the evolutionary definition of a transitional species?
Well, no, I'm asking you what criteria would the bones have, for example?
Okay, well, a transitional form would be a creature that is intermediate between two different creatures, two different species, or to talk in evolutionary lingo, a species that is intermediate between two different species. And that would mean that we would have a creature that blends the features of two different types of animals, like Tiktaalik blends the features of fish and tetrapods, or Archaeopteryx blends the features of what? Reptiles and, birds. And so,
What are you looking for in a human ape fossil?
In a human ape fossil, I'd probably be well. First, I do want to point out the fact that in nearly every single one of my opening presentations, what do? I go over the agnostic lines of evidence, one of them being transitional forms. Just so John doesn't lose his mind, I'm not going to screen share. But I typically screen share pictures of these crossover SUVs, amphibious assault vehicles, and I point out that the existence of a creature that blends the features of two different types of creatures, we can call an interesting mosaic, that would not refute the design hypothesis. Okay, so evolutionists might say this is a capo, but if I did find let's say Sediba was truly a real taxon and not artificial, I don't know how a creationist could say, well, that doesn't at least look transitional. I'd say sure. But again,
it doesn't look transitional.
I don't see how you can't say
the scenes are great transitions.
I think there's a difference between appearing transitional and being transitional.
Right. I'd agree with that. I would agree with. On surface level, you could say, well, it's got this amount of features here. This bone looks mosaic. This bone here is primitive, while this other bone here is derived and more human-like. You got an interesting mosaic. But just because you have an interesting mosaic doesn't actually really answer the question of ancestry in terms of, well, is this, a direct descendant of humans? But I would at least say. Okay, go ahead, Jackson.
Give me one skeletal feature that a transitional human ape should have.
One transitional feature that a human ape ancestor should have? Mm-hmm. I've already answered your question. Look at Sediba, for example. If Sediba is not an artificial species, then you have a mix of basal, quote unquote, features and derived features.
Sure, but I'm saying, let's say no transition exists. I'll grant you that.
I never said no transition.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying let's say that for the sake of argument. What skeletal structure would you be looking for to call something potentially transitional in a human ape line?
Well, you can answer your own question. What about Sediba? If it's a legit species, a legit taxon, what about Sediba do you find to be transitional?
Several things. It's hips, it's ankle joint. I mean, it's ankle bone especially. It's medial malleolus was thick like an ape, but its ankle bone itself was square like a human. I mean, it's as transitional as you can get in that respect.
Right. So you have a combination of basal-like features more derived, more human-like. You know, there's a mosaic nature to a lot of the bones kind of thing. So the evolutionist is going to interpret that as, you know, a transitional form, but also evidence of a transition happening. But I would say, and this is where I would look to the work of Dr. Todd Wood, Dr. Kurt Wise, Dr. Matthew McLean, who I had on the channel discussing thrapsids. This is where I'd say, well, you know, your interpretation isn't going to fit because we still have these massive gaps. We have these discontinuities. Where
Donny, you kind of did what you accuse other people did. You kind of dived and dodged there a little bit. Question, I think, a little bit.
You can't just listen. You can't just have like one. Okay, so let's grant you Sadiba's legit. So you have like one example when you should have thousands that bridge the gap. Not where you do these analyses and you have clear evidence of discontinuities where you got all the Homo group on one side and then ape-like group on another side with nothing bridging the gap. No, you're going to need a lot more than that because interesting mosaics, the one or two interesting mosaics, as I've pointed out, is expected in the design model because we have amphibious assault vehicles, crossover SUVs. We have hard to classify vehicles in the design world. So why would we not expect hard to classify creatures in the biological world? Now, do I believe Sadiba is transitional? No. Do I believe Sadiba is mosaic? No, because I believe it's chimeric. But even if it were not chimeric, let's say I granted that, you need a lot more to fill in the gaps. Otherwise, it's just an interesting mosaic. Go ahead, Jackson. Have the last word there.
I forget how many species there are. There are like 7 Australopithecine species, like 2 or 3 Paranthropus, several Homo, a couple Ardipithecus, a couple before that even. I mean, you're asking for like thousands of species.
You'd have to bridge the gap. You understand that there's massive gaps between your Australopithecine-like ancestors and humans today. Huge features, huge traits that we have no evidence for evolving. The hyoid bone being one of them. We discussed that, Jackson. Humans and Neanderthals in primates, at least, being the only one that have a hyoid bone in the sense that, you know, we have language, we can talk, there's speech. The baculum, you know, what happened
do you
there?
mean primates are the only one to have a hyoid bone? Just wondering.
I said within primates, humans and Neanderthals, I believe, are the only ones with a hyoid bone.
No,
in primates.
Australopithecus afarensis, the Dakika child, has a hyoid bone.
I didn't know that.
Are you trying to say Australopithecus? Which one?
Australopithecus afarensis, the Dakika child, has a hyoid bone.
And are you saying that it was capable of speech?
No, you just said that they did not have hyoid bones.
Well, I have a source here that says, well, I mean, given the nature of afarensis, jumble of species, we may have a human bone in there. But given the source that I provide, it says that humans and Neanderthals, I'll have to pull it up here.
Donny, I looked up that source that you provided in the debate. If you scroll down into there, it mentions chimpanzees having hyoid bones.
Chimpanzees having so this might be a matter of semantics again. The hyoid bone that we have that allows for, what does it allow for?
It serves as the base of the muscle attachment for the tongue and muscles in the bottom of the palate.
Okay. And who's the only other, you know, so-called primate, I guess you could say, that has that type of hyoid bone? I'm trying to find the source here.
Well, I completely agree with you. I did a whole video on this on my channel talking about how only creatures in the genus Homo have ever...
All right, guys, this is getting really myopic of you guys arguing over, like, oh, well, I agree with you, but I think in this little bit, it's really getting fucking annoying. So we're gonna take a break on that. And
God, I can finally go eat. Being cross-examined after a 2.5-hour debate, like, give me a break here.
Yeah,
sorry, Donny.
This is getting a little bit.
Aren't you a Baptist? Shouldn't your wife be making you some tea right now?
Yeah, perfect, John. Yeah,
Oh, it's ready.
109. That's it.
Sorry.
All right, so real quick, we're gonna play this clip of Dr. Tour answering some questions, and he's gonna get into the whole like, RNA on clay, and then also some of the stuff about
David Deemer.
Yeah. So let me take this off too. All right.
Where clay acts as a kind of substrate for nucleotides.
Yeah. If you go back to my Origin of Life videos, I talk about this and I show the data. I don't just talk about this. I show the data. I show the papers. What happens on clay is you can get very short oligomerizations occur on clay, but it's not just normal clay. I go through in the series about what happens. They use vol clay, and to get vol clay, so it's a commercial clay. Number one. Number two, you take it and you treat it with very strong acid-base mixtures, and you treat it in many special ways. Even with this, now you put on the pure nucleotides that are activated and ready for coupling. Not just a nucleotide, not just a regular nucleotide. It has to be an activated nucleotide. So in other words, you need a leaving group on that phosphorus that's other than OH. So it's not really a nucleotide, it's now an activated nucleotide. And then when you polymerize it, they're very short. I'm talking about 4 mer, 5 mer, 6 mer. That's short. And then when you look at it, it's not the 3' 5' coupling that's in RNA. You get a lot of it is the 2' 5' coupling. So it's no longer RNA. Say it doesn't matter. Matters a lot. What happens when you have the wrong coupling pattern there? When you have the wrong coupling, it acts as siRNA, small interferon RNA, and it shuts down all the translation and transcription sequences just cut as a result of this. So this whole transcription of information is cut as a result of this. So I don't think much of it because it's highly tuned. And then when you look at it, it's an utter mess. And I show those very papers. So you got to look at the papers and you see this doesn't work. It doesn't work. You get the 2' 5' coupling. RNA is a hard problem.
Okay, thank you. There has recently been some controversy over the last few months on YouTube. A bit of a debate going on between yourself and Dave Farina, and so he has critiqued some of your criticism of Origin of Life research, and he's also responded to your 13-part series, and it's a very interesting response, I must say, apart from the personal attacks. But among other things, he responded to your point that Origin of Life researchers often work under pristine lab conditions. And he points out that there's also Origin of Life research outside of the lab. And he refers to David Deemer, who does work in hot springs in Yellowstone National Park. And
John, let me say one thing real quick.
This is what Deemer writes. Cycles of dehydration and rehydration in such...
I just wanted to comment to Andrew Cumming in the chat there. So when it comes to the hyoid bone, and you can pull up that source that I use that says the hyoid bone, which is the only bone in the body not connected to any other, is the foundation of speech and is found only in humans and Neanderthals. Speech and language is the key here. Okay, so the primates have the bone, but it's completely different. Only the human line, humans today and Neanderthals, okay, have it for speech. Now, if anybody on the panel disagrees with that, then, speak now, but that's my whole point.
I don't disagree, but you specifically said that Australopithecines did not have hyoid bones, which is not true.
Well, Australopithecines may have the bone, but it's completely different than the bone.
But that's not what you said. You just said that humans are the only ones that have hyoid bones.
I read directly from the source, Peter. And so far in 2 after shows, you haven't accepted correction on any of your points that you brought up, okay? I refuted you on your misunderstanding of created heterozygosity last show. Okay, I explained to you exactly why Neanderthal genetics are different today, and you acted like you've never heard that before.
You not read?
I'm not. Wait. I want to ask you a question. Why did the beginning of your sentence start in the middle of mine?
Simply because you're saying something untrue about me?
Well, no, it's not true, because you were asking, well, why would God create, according to the created heterozygosity model, creatures with genetic mistakes? What in the world? Nobody ever said that. Mutations are introduced after creation. Mutations are introduced after the flood. That's how we get genetic mistakes. I mean, anybody who's done any little bit of reading in creationist technical journals on that would understand that point.
I was not
That's just
saying
bizarre.
that in the first place, but whatever.
But
We finished the video.
Yeah, we can finish the video, but what I'm really curious about is what is, like, Peter, it's coming off rather obvious to me that you have a chip on your shoulder, and I want to know what the deal is with that. Because the reason I'm asking that is I hear a lot of I agree with you, but then a bunch of like semantic nitpicking going on ad nauseum in my 2 interactions with you, and I'm just curious to see what's the beef, bro.
No, it's just I have a number of kind of different points that I disagree on with Standing, and I don't have anything personally against him, and
Okay,
I
then so why don't you guys have a formal debate then, and you air your grievances and go mano a mano, back up your bullshit, or keep your mouth shut. One of the two.
Right? Because
And
because Peter, you haven't backed up
hang on,
anything in the
hang on,
last
hang on,
two
hang on.
shows.
And the same thing goes for Donny. If he can't back up his stuff, then he needs to shut up.
I've already backed it up with data point after data point.
Johnny, I'm going to put you in timeout. This is not your turn. This is me talking now. I'm calling out Peter as the host of the show. I've observed this on 2 different streams. I know that you've posted videos specifically talking trash talking SFT. So, I mean, are you going to rise to the occasion? Do you want to have a formal debate? Or are we going to turn this into like a little semantic little boy talking trash? I feel like I'm in a freaking middle school right now.
I offered to speak publicly with Donny a long time ago.
Well,
okay,
we've spoken publicly over the last 2 after shows.
So what's your formal debate you want to have?
If he wants to discuss the bipedality of the Australopithecines, sure.
How about we debate what's the best way to determine ancestry? Bones in the dirt or genetics? How's that sound for a topic?
No, because I completely agree with you that genetics is a better view of ancestry.
Well, that's my whole point. Now, here's the thing, Peter. Okay, you do come in with an attitude, and are you here to, join in refuting evolutionism and maybe combating some of the talking points for the evolutionists, or do you just want to argue with fellow young Earth creationists all the time? That's what I'd really, really love to know.
I am interested in both, because before we can show a concerted force to the other side, we have to figure out our own model.
So do you want all young Earth creationists to conform to your model, and then you'll finally start?
Nope, we have to work together to form a comprehensive model.
Okay. Well, I would recommend you start reading technical papers. I read the literature of Todd Wood and Kurt Wise and them as well, but I also have a strong background in technical papers from people like Nathaniel Jensen, Rob Carter, John Sanford, but I feel like you're just completely ignoring that whole side, which is why, your question about Neanderthals, like that's been written about. That there's paper after paper on that in creationist literature. I really am flabbergasted at some of these questions that you should probably know the answer to. Like that's my whole point.
I'm flabbergasted that you still couldn't tell the difference between speciation and what you claim to be genetic.
You realize you're in the minority position in the young Earth creationist world to say that there's multiple species of.
Absolutely. Yes.
Exactly. So is Nathaniel Jensen and Rob Carter and Johnson, are they confused as well when it comes to speciation? What about Christopher Roop? Is he using rescue devices when it comes to Australopithecus sediba and habilis? Because you said I used a rescue device. So what about Ella Bin and Yoel Rak? Is that a rescue device from them too? Actually, no, answer that question. Is Christopher Roop's position as laid out in Contested Bones when it comes to afarensis, habilis, and sediba, is that a rescue device? I want you to go on record. Yes or no? Rescue device from Christopher Roop?
I believe so.
Okay, I appreciate that. And what about Jensen, Sanford, and Carter? Do they have a horrible understanding of speciation, since they would agree with me on humans not being multiple species? Go ahead.
I'm not saying you have a horrible view of speciation. I'm just saying that I think that you're being a little inconsistent.
Okay, so we're gonna kibosh the ongoing speciation talk because you guys went back and forth on that for like a solid 15 minutes and it got nowhere. So if you guys want to have a debate on that topic, do it. But I think we're gonna end that. I'm going back to tour.
Freshwater conditions would promote the assembly of membranous structures in which condensation reactions can produce polymers from dissolved monomers. So you get polymers of organic.
By the way, everybody, one of the reasons I'm playing this is in response to Tony and Luca's little interaction at the very beginning, where Luca made the assertion that Tour had not read the papers on the experience being done in the Yellowstone Park.
Compounds. And then he says, polymerization reactions do occur within the drying film, upon rehydration, so when it gets wet again, the polymers become encapsulated within membranous compartments, so within membranes, to form vast populations of protocells that can undergo selection and evolution. What do you say to that?
It's nonsense. I say it's utter nonsense because I've read the papers and I've read the data. So what he did is he buys nucleotides. He buys them that are isolated already from cellular natural sources. And he puts these in his hot springs, but he never analyzed the polymers therefrom. He just put them and he said their approximate molecular weight. He doesn't even call them RNA because when you look at them, you can't do it. He never looked at the 2', 5' connection. He never looked at the base doing the attack. When you don't protect the base, why do we protect the base on DNA synthesis? You have to protect the base because the base can act as a nucleophile. Then he never looked at the alcohols that are in there. He never looked at the other things that are in the hot springs that are going to be doing those attacks. He got a bunch of polymeric garbage. He got garbage. And he says he has RNA. And I keep pointing this thing out. It's not been characterized. It's not been characterized. And Ruben, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you because you've been summarily led astray by those words. You really have. Because when you do the analysis on there, he never showed the analysis. Why would he not show the analysis? Because it's garbage. It's garbage. You're doing a condensation polymerization. So you're working under kinetics that are condensation polymerization kinetics. These are chain growth kinetics that function under something called the Carruthers equation. Any little bit of impurity, any little alcohol in that hot spring, is going to terminate the growth of this. Those polymers that he got were utter trash. And then he said that this is a vesicle and this does evolution. Again, this is what I'm talking about. Oliver, take note. Oliver, this is for you. This is a claim by an origin of life researcher, which was utter nonsense. There is no evolution. There's no RNA in there. He's got a bunch of trash in there. Do the analysis on that. So Oliver, look at what's happened to Ruben. I mean, the poor guy is so deceived by this.
Well, I know this Oliver personally, and we're certainly going to have some nice follow-up conversations about it.
So tonight you're going to have to talk about this, but Oliver, you're just going to have to take care of this young man.
Well, you don't have to worry about me, Dr. Tour. I'm just asking the questions. This is a question from a certain Mr. T. So any name there. This is not directly.
Okay, so Luca, you want to respond because you made rather strong assertions at the beginning of the stream.
Yes. Did you want to share yourself the paper, or I need to screen share?
Let's see. Is this the one you posted earlier? Let me see here.
Yes. I think that will be faster if I do the screen share.
Let's see here. I got it. Okay, here we go. Okay.
Okay. Can you scroll down a little bit? Okay. That's David Dreamer doing experiments. Go on. Oh, go on. Okay. There. That's electrophoresis analysis on what they did. And if you go even further, you will look at spectrophotometry analysis, I think. So yeah, that's the analysis. That picture there, it's electrophoresis analysis. It's a specific analysis that find genes inside a strand of DNA or RNA. So sorry, but I do not know if it's a mistake on the part of Tour or it's something even worse, but the analyses were made and you are looking at that.
Well, I think that Tour made a rather specific statement about analyzing whether or not it was 5' to 2', or we say 2.
It was telling that there were made no analysis on what their results. Those are the analysis, and there are specific one to
right. But he made
determine
right,
how
he
kind what
He
kind
needs
of
rather specific.
compounds you have, and those in particular are to look for genes. The experiment was all about gene expression. Those are genes.
Okay, I think he made a rather clear distinction about this. Let me see. Let me rewind here. Because I think he made a rather clear distinction about the what was not looked for in the analysis. And
He said that was garbage. That's not garbage at all. Those are expresses genes inside the results. David Dreaming is... Oh, sorry. David Dreamer is lying about it. Maybe, but I never saw anything that suggests that. So those are good results. And for me,
But his starting materials were purchased nucleotides. I don't know if you heard that part, Luca.
yes, but it changed nothing on the experiments. I do not know where in the paper said so. I did not see that in the paper, but it changes nothing about it, even if they were purchased or done by Dreamer itself. It changed nothing.
all right, let's listen again to exactly what Tour said, because I'm pretty sure I heard him make a clear distinction about what was and what was not shown.
of origin of life research, and he's also responded to your 13-part series, and it's a very interesting response, I must say, apart from the personal attacks. But among other things, he responded to your point that origin of life researchers often work under pristine lab conditions. And he points out that there's also origin of life research outside of the lab. And he refers to David Deemer, who does work in hot springs in Yellowstone National Park. And quoting from the paper, if I may, this is what Deemer writes. Cycles of dehydration and rehydration in such freshwater conditions would promote the assembly of membranous structures in which condensation reactions can produce polymers from dissolved monomers. So you get polymers of organic compounds. And then he says, polymerization reactions do occur within the drying film upon rehydration. So when it gets wet again, the polymers become encapsulated within membranous compartments, so within membranes, to form vast populations of protocells that can undergo selection and evolution. What do you say of that?
It's nonsense. I say it's utter nonsense because I've read the papers and I've read the data. So what he did is he buys nucleotides, he buys them that are isolated already from cellular natural sources, and he puts these in his hot springs, but he never analyzed the polymers they're from. He just put them and he said their approximate molecular weight. He doesn't even call them RNA because when you look at them, you can't do it. He never looked at the 2' 5' connection. He never looked at the base doing the attack. When you don't protect the base, why do we protect the base on DNA synthesis? You have to protect the base because the base can act as a nucleophile. Then he never looked at the alcohols that are in there. He never looked at the other things that are in the hot springs that are going to be doing those attacks. He got a bunch of polymeric garbage. He got garbage. And he says he has RNA. And I keep pointing this thing out. It's not been characterized. It's not been characterized. And Ruben, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to you because you've been summarily led astray by those words. You really have. Because when you do the analysis on there, he never showed the analysis. Why would he not show the analysis? Because it's garbage. It's garbage. You're doing a condensation polymerization. So you're working under kinetics that are condensation polymerization kinetics. These are chain growth kinetics that function under something called the Carruthers equation. Any little bit of impurity, any little alcohol in that hot spring, is going to terminate the growth of this. Those polymers that he got were utter trash. And then he said that this is in a vesicle and this does evolution. Again, this is what I'm talking about. Oliver, take note. Oliver, this is for you. This is a claim by an origin of life researcher, which was utter nonsense. There is no evolution. There's no RNA in there. He's got a bunch of trash in there. Do the analysis on that. So Oliver, look at what's happened to Ruben. The poor guy is so deceived by this.
Well, I know this Oliver personally, and we're certainly going to have some nice follow-up conversations about this.
So tonight you're going to have to talk about it.
There you go.
Oliver.
Yep. All from pre-existing sources.
Yeah, it seems to me he's making a rather clear distinction about there's different aspects to the analysis that were not done that would be necessary to fully substantiate the claims being made.
John,
basically calling the guy a
if
liar there.
I may, those aspects are those you saw in the paper. Thor said that the analysis it was not characterized. They ran no analysis on the results. You saw the results. Those electrophoresis is a very specific test for genes. So yes, there is RNA with actual genes in it in the results. David Dreamer is lying about it. I don't think so, but you need to show that. But he did those analyses, and you saw the results. Also, he did run also a spectrophotometry analysis to characterize the results. So, Tour here is mistaken at best.
Okay. Well, I'll have to get another. I'm gonna have to have a conversation with see what like Dr. Gart or Dr. Carter thinks about it. Have them take a look at it, because it seemed to me that Tour was making very specific delineations about what he said was not being shown, and I don't. This what I'm seeing here. I could be reading it wrong. From what I'm seeing here, I don't know if he's. I think you may be misinterpreting exactly what he was saying, but we can we get a second opinion. All right. Who else wants to bring something up? I know we
Okay,
lost,
sorry. I just really need to sleep, so I want to make my best wishes to the chat and this panel, and say to you all goodbye. Sorry if I cannot stay longer, but it's very late. 6 a.m. here, so I really need to rest.
No problem, Luca. You have a great night, man. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you taking care of the debate. And, I know you're being a little bit of a crybaby wanting to go to bed at 6 a.m., but we'll forgive you this time. And I hope you get some sleep, man.
Okay. See you all, guys. It was a pleasure.
Right on, man.
See
Have a
you.
good night. Oh, man. We got Wesley Coleman in the house. What's up, Wesley? And we had Jamie, but he left. We got Dustin. I don't know if he's saying anything. What's up, Wesley? How you doing, man?
Hey, man. I'm doing pretty good. I hope my connection's okay.
Yeah, you're coming through just fine right now.
I'm in a kind of iffy space in my house, but hopefully it's gonna be fine. Anyway, yeah, I'm good. I didn't see the debate or anything, but I was working, so yep. Don't have anything to add really, so.
Okay, gotcha. Dustin, how you doing, man? Is your mic working? I saw you come off mute. We're not hearing you. Dustin, are you there? Okay. TJ, what's up? Actually, Jackson has a bandana on his head, so it's been there for a while, so we know he's getting a little bit feisty over there. So
Yeah,
what's up?
Say.
What do you say?
And this is coming from a guy wearing a bandana on his head, but James Tour, I've never really watched too much of him, but he kind of seems like a lunatic. If he wasn't wearing a suit, I would be like, this guy's out of his mind. He kind of has that vibe about him. I'm not saying he's crazy. He's smart. I'm just.
What does that matter? And he does wear a suit most of his
matter.
days.
Okay, so look, hang on. So, let me ask you this: did you understand more than 50% of what he was saying?
Yeah, I got what he was saying. I'm not saying he's necessarily wrong. I'm just saying. I'm just being funny. I don't know.
Okay. Well, all I gotta say is the dude has had 4 IPOs off of his discoveries in the past 6 years.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's not smart. That's
He's the one of the top 10 most cited chemists on the planet. and was voted one of the 50 most influential minds of the last century. I I always find it very entertaining, all the people who claim
Yeah.
he must not know what he's talking about.
Why did you
Yep.
say that?
No, I didn't say you did, but I'm saying there's a significant percentage of individuals who claim he doesn't know what he's talking about. And yet the vast majority of people that make those claims don't understand the majority of what he says. And from there's a lot of stuff he says I don't understand. I freely admit that. I can interpret what he's saying, and a lot of stuff I'll go look it up and figure out what he's talking about. But a lot, it's like, it always cracks me up how many folks like in debates and stuff will be like, I am not an expert in X, and then we'll be like, but he definitely doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's like, okay, so let me get this straight. You don't know something that I know about XYZ topic, but you're telling me the person who knows a ridiculous amount more than almost anybody else on the freaking planet about chemistry doesn't know what he's talking about, or can't read a paper and can't understand a paper. To me, that just seems very it seems like an escape mechanism.
Well, not everybody can know everything. That goes for anyone.
Nobody's refuting him. Nobody's refuting Tor. Not Lee Cronin, George Whitesides, Jack Shostak, none of these people.
Yeah, it is kind of funny how it's the wannabe Daves that are supposedly
just people on YouTube that are refuting him. That's it. The YouTube atheist. But the experts have no idea how to create a cell, nowhere close. But yet people on YouTube know more.
Beamsy is getting dumber by the day. Are you sure he's in the top 10? As I do not even see his name in the top 1,000 on LinkedIn.
Hey, you think YouTube's bad? Try going into a damn Discord server. These people think they could box up William Lane Craig.
Oh man, it's so good.
Nah, for real. While y'all was talking, I was just scrolling through Discord servers. Man, these new metas, because I'm part of a certain. There's a lot of people that are like, I guess what, not even atheists, just really just kind of like anti-God. So like, whenever a believer, or like more specifically a Christian, like hops up into their server, they don't like to do, because it's a Discord server, so ain't no formal debates. They like to get like, it's like a 5-on-1 just gang fest of them just throwing out stupid arguments and not letting the other person talk. But there's this new meta that these kids have found, and I'm not going too hard on them because a lot of them are like, some of them are like middle schoolers and high schoolers and stuff, which is still kind of sad. But it's like the new meta argument against God. I don't know word for word, but it's something to do with like numbers or something, or if like there's a chance something don't happen and God don't exist. I don't know, some dumbass argument, but I don't know. It's just kind of funny. I'm just looking at these chats and it's just.
I'd tell you the thing that. Okay, BMC says you made a claim, so I went looking at the list, and he does not even crack a mention on LinkedIn. Really? Wow. Okay. And BMC, I'm pretty sure I was referring. I said top 10 most cited chemists on the planet, number 1, and I'm not really sure what LinkedIn would have to do with any of that, but whatever. But yeah, the whole point you were making about the stupid arguments and just lacking in substance of all this stuff. I tell you what, the thing that really gets me is how, with the the number, I'd say probably the number 1 position taken by atheists these days has got to be either well, not as much the logical problem of evil, but the evidential problem of evil is like one of their favorites.
Up a lot.
And I'm just like, I really don't understand why it is so difficult to recognize how dumb that position is. If we are immortal, God knows we're immortal. This is a blip of time in our total existence. It has nothing to do with our bad things that happen in this life are not substantive from the eternal perspective. So Like I really don't get that. Like I understand you don't have to accept that we have eternal existence is in play. However, if eternal existence is in play, then your problem with why is God let these bad things happen is like so childlike and juvenile. Like it doesn't mean that in the current time it won't be hard to deal with. That's not the point. It's you're arguing why would God let this happen at all? I mean, it's just I just don't get it.
Yeah, I have something to say. Might be a stupid question, but why would we have this existence at all if there's an infinite afterlife? I mean, I don't get why does there have to be a trial to see if you're worthy of it? I mean, I don't get it.
Okay.
Here we go.
If we want to have, if God ultimately wants us to choose him, right? And to learn, okay. If we don't have the option to not obey God, then all we are is robots. Great.
All right.
Okay. So do we have to be given the option to not do what God wants in order to ultimately want to actually live in the eternal existence with God?
But the punishment is an eternity of hellfire.
No. We're removing. Don't even. That's not. No, you can't use that as an escape mechanism. We're talking about why would God allow bad things to happen? If the majority of bad things that happen are things are stupid. The majority of bad things that happen are stupid things that we do to ourselves.
Yep.
That's just a fact. Vast majority is stupid crap. Like
I have another question, and it's probably also dumb, but. Okay, God has existed for an infinity, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So why did he create the universe 6,000 years ago?
What? I mean, there's always going to be, it doesn't matter if it's 6,000 or 14 billion. If God is infinite, the time factor is irrelevant.
Well, I know, but I mean, it seems like such a small amount of time. It seems unlikely to me. I don't know.
Well, if all time is nothing to the eternal being, it only matters from our frame of reference. But our frame of reference is ultimately nothing from the eternal perspective, which is the point I was making earlier, like 5 minutes ago, about in relation to the whole why does bad things happen? It seems worse from our short-term, current finite frame of reference. However, from the eternal frame of reference, it would not. There's nothing wrong with it because the person in the eternal frame of reference knows that we're ultimately immortal. Therefore, the only people who are freaking out about this stuff is us. And if you shift out of this stage of life, then you immediately recognize how stupid it is. And this is why, like, okay, sidebar, Jackson. Have you ever read anything on like near-death experiences?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, cool. So what is one of the most common things that people talk about in relation
bright light, usually?
Well, no, not just that. The in relation to time,
it seems to stand still or something.
No, this is of experiences, right? But they talk about how they can experience multiple things at the same time.
Yeah.
There's all these different facets, and it's a totally different frame of reference, right? And the second they are ejected from their body, right, their whole perception of existence changes, right? Is that a pretty not 99%, but like the vast majority of people make that claim?
But I kind of chalk up near-death experiences as just, I mean, Muslims see Muhammad, and I've read about those experiences too, and Christians see Jesus, and I don't know. Maybe that's a bad argument too.
Oh no! Also, Jackson, I just wanted to clear us up with you when you mix you with hell. I just wanted to say, because you said like an eternity of hellfire, you're thinking of the lake of fire. Hell really is separation from God. You'd be separated from God for eternity, but the burning doesn't come unless you get thrown into the lake of fire. That's when you're getting burned for eternity. But hey, get your heart to the Lord. You don't gotta worry about that. But I just want to clear that up real quick.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, what was the last thing you'd ask me, Jackson?
My memory's crap. I honestly don't remember.
What were we talking about? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah. Oh, we were talking about the NDE stuff.
Oh, right.
So if from the second they get kicked out of their body, they're having this totally different frame of reference, right? And the not all, but the vast majority of them talk about how they suddenly realize that all these things they were all worried about, all that kind of stuff, were almost pointless, right? And ultimately, the vast majority of them, they come back. They talk about how they didn't want to, right? Because they realized that where they were going was exponentially better than this frame of reference, this life, right? But then they make the choice for their family, kids, all that kind of stuff, right? Most of them. And they come back and they're like, oh man, it was so much freaking better, right? So in the context of like, why would God let anybody die? It's like, well, if the next stage is exponentially better, is that person actually worse off than they were here? I mean, the obvious answer is no. They're actually way better off. So again, if you are the eternal being, right, who knows that when they leave this mortal coil, they will actually be in a better level of existence than they are now. How
Can
is
anybody hear me?
Yeah, what's up, Dustin?
I can hear you.
Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to interrupt you, LPP. I was trying to fix my mic.
No, it's okay, man.
But I have questions after you're done.
All right. So anyway, long story short, it's like when you contemplate things from the point of view that I'm talking about right now, I really don't understand like how atheists get all butthurt about this stuff. When if what I'm saying is true, then you're complaining about people getting to go into a better stage of existence when you're actually the one who's staying in shit. Like, oh my goodness, how mean of God to make me stay in the crappy plane of existence and not be able to get off to the cooler stage. Like,
I think my neighbor's having sex.
Oh yeah.
Yep, think so.
Are you? How does that make you feel, Jackson?
It makes me feel like this girl needs to come over already.
So is this the coworker?
No, not a coworker. Just some girl I met on Tinder.
Okay.
Well, you actually got a match on that thing?
What are you saying?
I mean, I don't use Tinder, but I hear that from most guys.
What, it's not very successful?
I mean, I don't believe in doing none of that. I like to get up close and personally.
Oh yeah.
I heard just for the vast majority of men that yeah, they're not successful on it.
Well,
I'm not saying you can't get
matches. Probably not as many as other people, but yeah, I did.
Well, shoot, that's what's up.
Yep.
Shoot, don't do nothing too crazy now.
Yep.
You don't want to pop a shadow clone jutsu. We have a couple little Jacksons running around.
I might already. I don't know.
Oh shoot.
Okay, what is going? Okay, Slavic keeps joining, and like as soon as I bring him into this, bring him on, he drops off. Something bad's happening. Okay, Dustin, you said you had a question, right?
I've got to play with my volume real quick. Is that better?
Yeah, you're coming through good.
Okay. Yeah. So selective pressure. Okay. If viruses evolve and the idea is to live longer, why do viruses evolve to kill the host?
Okay, say that again.
If viruses evolve to live longer, why do viruses evolve to kill the host?
Well, a lot of the selection pressure is like trying to find the survival fitness and not kill the host, that's why viruses usually, almost always, trend to become more infectious but less deadly. Like just what we're seeing with COVID right now, right? The Omicron is much more infectious, but it's not as deadly.
For sure. What I'm getting at is, why do we find viruses that are new that kill the host if the idea is to live longer?
Well, most of those viruses are like something that's new. It's not necessarily a new virus. It's just something that's jumped from another organism to humans, and our bodies don't know how to deal with it. That's why it's deadly initially.
Descent with moderation, correct?
Descent with modification, you mean?
Yeah, modification. But the idea would be to live longer, yet these newer viruses kill the host.
Okay, dude. The newer virus isn't necessarily new. It's something that has come from, it's either a new variation that our immune system is not ready to beat yet, because we haven't come across it before, right? And most of those are coming from other organisms, right? So a virus that might not be deadly in a monkey is deadly in a human, or something in a bat. It may not kill the bat. It might actually be beneficial to the bat, but our body, it conflicts with our body. That's what the vast majority of the problems and the why viruses are deadly or make us sick or whatever is that it doesn't work in our system. That's one of the major issues.
But over time, then it becomes less deadly.
Usually. Well, I mean, that's the most likely thing that's going to happen, yes. Almost always.
It just confuses me. I don't understand how it jumps from one host to another, and then it ends up killing that host. But then over certain generations, the lethality of the virus drops. Now, if evolution was a key factor and it was selective pressure, the jump from species to species, in my opinion, would limit the evolutionary factor of the virus. But then the virus adapts, but I don't understand the selective pressure that makes it change. It doesn't know that it's killing the host. I mean, it's not like the dead viruses in the dead body goes to the other viruses and say, hey, this is what you need to do to live longer. So when it jumps from host to host, how does the selective pressure change the virus so that it's less lethal?
Okay, dude, it's mutations. Okay, the ones that survive and don't get completely eradicated, that is what survives. And usually the reason it's going to survive is because it didn't kill the host. Because if it killed the variations that didn't kill the host, right? So, and again, the starting point isn't necessarily the intent, right? Just the effect is the result of it being something new that our bodies haven't previously faced. And then because our immune system on the fly is creating mechanisms to defeat that virus, it's only the ones that end up surviving are the ones that aren't necessarily going to kill the host, but can survive long enough to infect somebody else and continue to spread their that version. And it's anyway.
So it comes down to chance.
A lot of it is chance. A lot of it is there's a plethora. There's a bunch of reasons for this of what's going on, but the majority of it is if you kill all of your hosts, then you die. If you are a virus, if you have so the only ones that are ultimately going to survive are the ones that find the balance point of I can infect you, I can take over cells, but I don't kill you. And then I can infect other people and spread it along. Because eventually the virus is either going to kill you or it's going to lose, right?
And the only difference between one that will kill you and one that won't is the mutation.
Well, when there's a bunch of different reasons. I mean, it can be your immune. I mean, like look at COVID right now, right? The vast majority of people are not going to go to the hospital, and the vast majority of people are not going to die, right? But people who have diabetes, who are morbidly obese, who have cancer, who have heart issues, have kidney issues, their immune system isn't necessarily going to be able to beat a virus that the majority of us are going to be able to overcome very, very quickly. and have hardly any, in many cases, don't even have hardly any symptoms, right? It's just like a normal cold or flu symptoms, and you're done and you're fine. It's the same thing with any flu, with the flu, the normal flu, right? Every year there's a bunch of people, elderly people, that die from the flu, but it's because their immune systems are weak. They have all these different comorbidities that their body can't overcome this virus. But again, the vast majority of people beat it. So there's like I said, there's multiple factors in it. You can't just break it down to like, oh, this is the only issue. There's multiple.
I'm just having a really hard time wrapping my head around the selective pressure.
Okay, well, I'm not. Dude, I've explained this like 5 times now.
No, I'm not asking you to explain it again. That's just what I'm having the issue understanding.
Okay, well, maybe I think maybe you should watch some videos on viruses and how they change and go around in the systems.
The situation at the nuclear plant's under control now, apparently.
In favor of who?
Ukraine, I guess. But it won't be for long, probably.
Yeah, I tell you what, man. I am ready for this this crap to be over at this point. I'm really getting worried that we are on a freaking beeline for massive war.
Yeah, I think so.
And I really feel like the poor Ukrainian civilians are being turned into cannon fodder for what's they're being used. They're like useful pawns for a global
proxy war now.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous. There's 2 people who are going to die from this. Now, and what's getting ridiculous, really pissing me off, is all the European Union countries like, oh, we're sending weapons and weapons and weapons over and over and over again. It's
I think that's the dumbest thing, because I see it as being inevitable, and you're just going to prolong it even more.
Yeah, hey, what's up, Slavic, man? How you doing, man? Good to see you. And how's the family doing? Slavic's got he's Ukrainian heritage. Actually, you were born in Ukraine, weren't you? And I know you got a bunch of family still over there.
Yeah, I got family over there. They're all on the west side of Ukraine, so the war's still not like directly. I got a brother-in-law that his family's actually in the war zone. They say they're pretty much sitting at home and watching out that nobody shoots them. But I don't know. I'm doing good. My family's so far doing good. It is super stressful. I haven't been thinking anything about it except trying to figure out what's going on there and when all this is going to end. But about that nuclear reactor thing, actually, technically, we were not specifically in danger because the plant was built to withstand bombs dropped on it, and the only thing that was happening was that the Ukrainian army was in the administrative buildings, and the Russians were attacking it from, trying to get the army out of the administrative buildings. But yeah.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, like I said, this is glad family overall is okay so far, but obviously that could change in a second when you're talking about war. So you never know what could happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did have the airstrikes. I guess by the airport there was a military base that got destroyed right in the beginning, and after that it's kind of been quiet because mostly the tanks are moving in from the east. So that part of the country's being chewed up.
Russia's losing a lot of tanks.
Yeah, that's true. But
yeah, I heard a very interesting analysis the other day about the tank losses and how basically they think that Putin has been holding back his advanced weaponry and sending in the older versions, knowing that they'll get blown up by the Javelin missiles. And
he's been flooding them with the older ones, like T-72Bs and even AVs and As. They're really the oldest variants of T-72s that they have.
Right, but part of the hypothesis was that since this is a proxy war, he's wanting to withhold his advanced weaponry to not give the Western countries the opportunity to actually see his most advanced weaponry in combat until the last minute. Doesn't want to give them kind of a sneak peek into what can be done.
There have been a few T-90s that have been captured and destroyed, but not very many. That's their pretty much most advanced tank that they field. They have the T-14 Armada, which is their most advanced tank, but there are only like 20 of them right now, so they can't really field those.
Well, technically, from my understanding, was the Russians were kind of expecting that they're going to do a big show of force, and the Ukrainians are going to give up. And that did not happen because they lost a couple of helicopters like that. Like literally, they were doing like crazy, weird, dumb things.
Yeah.
Like, they knew that the Ukrainians got, the Stinger missiles and the javelins, and they were flying helicopters right over the city. And then there's videos of it.
Yeah, a couple of them got shot down.
Like they're firing at them at point blank range. There's like 10 of them flying across the city.
Yeah,
so I think
at least 3 helicopters are shot down so far that I've seen.
Yeah, I think what they were thinking is that they're going to show a force and Ukraine is going to give up. And so far, they've been trying to stay away from rocket artillery and stuff like that, just because they want to make sure that the Ukrainians are not going to fight a insurrection war. Because there's a lot of cities that were pro-Russian, even though they were on the Ukrainian side. So, they were hoping not to use heavy equipment. But who knows if this keeps going on for long, they might start using heavier stuff, which kind of is going to mean a lot more civilians dead.
I saw a video of a rail in Russia bringing in 203 millimeter howitzers and 240 millimeter mortars, self-propelled mortars and self-propelled howitzers, pions and tile pins, they're called. They're usually used for siege warfare. They're probably going to use it on Mariupol right now. I forget how to pronounce that city because it's besieged, and they might use it on Kharkiv. They're pushing on that one pretty hard with the BM-30 Smerch rockets, even, which are like little cluster bomblets that come out of the rocket.
Yeah. I seen. I've been kind of trying to keep up with that development, and it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on because everybody's throwing false information like crazy. I guess that's part of warfare these days.
Yeah, the amount of false flags and just blaringly obvious propaganda is getting on both sides is getting ridiculous at this point.
Yeah,
and what's pissing me off is the propaganda coming out of the United States freaking White House and mainstream media is getting really annoying. I mean, they're not even hiding the fact they're being propaganda agents at this point.
No, they've been that way for over a decade that I've noticed.
Well, I mean, I know they have, but I'm saying like it's just once again on full display the level of just not even trying to cover up the fact that they're like, oh, the average American's a freaking idiot.
Yeah.
When it comes to news and being able to like know anything about the geopolitical realities of the globe. I mean, the fact of the matter is the vast majority of Americans don't. I mean, I remember this when I came back from college, right? I will never forget my freshman year in college when I was asked where I was from. I said, oh, I grew up in England on an Air Force base. And I kid you not, I was asked, oh, did you drive here? And I'm just like, it's an island. I don't think that's really an option for me. Like, I guess I could drive on a boat, like drive onto the boat and then sail over here and then get off the boat and drive here. But like, this is really bad, And that was not the only time that I had people ask me similar questions over the years. So I use it as an example of like a gigantic percentage of Americans don't even know the basic geography of their own hemisphere, let alone the planet. It's just, it's very bad.
Like the worst part, I think the worst part was the Ukrainians weren't prepared for war, which is kind of sad because now a lot more people are dying for no reason. I'm talking about like, they didn't even prep the civilian population that there's gonna be war. Like most people had, excuse me, most people had no food put aside. Especially in the cities, like people in the villages and stuff, they usually have food because that's the way of life. You gotta for the store food for the winter and stuff. So they got food, but like the cities it's scary. And in Kiev, they were passing out. Well, actually, a lot of places they were passing out guns to anybody that wanted to fight. And the problem with that is that the people who usually gets guns that are for free. In America, we have a gun culture here, so it's not surprising that people get guns. But over there, it's illegal to have guns. So criminals will go get guns first. And like the first night, over 60 people were dead just because they were shooting at each other without realizing that they're on the same side.
Right.
Yeah, I saw some videos of that.
And I'm sure there's also some old grudges are being settled right now under the cover of war. Like, how are you going to prove who was the shooter? And then let's get real. You can't really. Oh yeah, we're gonna investigate how somebody got blown up, shot, or just died a mysterious death in the middle of being, undergoing artillery fire, missile strikes. Like, oh yeah, no idea how that one happened. Like, and let's be real. It's not like there's going to be high level forensic investigations that are going to happen immediately after this. I mean, come on. I don't know.
Hey, John, I'm going to share my screen in a second. Is that all right?
Oh, my goodness. What? An hour and 55 minutes in, and Jackson's going to share his screen. What's up?
All right, let me show you some pictures I put on Facebook that no one liked because no one cares. But anyway, hang on.
By the way, I want to know what happened to Slavic, also known as Putin's shoe licker. He's come back in. Come on, Will. Get back in here. I was having some fun changing his... he came in as Russian fanboy screen name, so I kept changing him to a variety of other things. Okay.
Already seen it?
Yep.
Okay. This is a T-72B. You can tell from the explosive reactive armor layout. You know what that is? The bricks here, when an RPG hits them, it explodes outward and kind of deflects it. But this up here is a screen for javelin missiles, because javelin missiles come up and down onto the tank. But this one was left behind. Here's a T-72 B3M. It's got explosive reactive armor bag thingies on the side and on the front. This is Contact 5 explosive reactive armor, which can defeat javelin missiles. Why they left it behind, I don't know. This is a T-80 BVM, an even better tank with also Contact 5 explosive reactive armor, left behind for no reason. This is their best tank, the T-90. It has the Stora kind of passive protection system, I guess is what you'd call it. They'll light up and confuse the anti-tank missile and make it miss. So this is basically their best tank right now, the T-90A. There are some higher levels of T-90s, but this is the best one they're fielding at the moment. They've lost about 10 of those, maybe. And anyway. Hang on. Here's the other thing I posted. You want to see the video of them shooting at the nuclear plant? See that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I posted that.
Who's that?
That's the guy from the Doctor Strangelove movie.
Oh.
It's like on the nuclear war and stuff.
The worst part about it is, I don't believe that Ukraine's gonna not fall to the Russians, because the Russian army is just way more equipped, much more.
Yeah.
Either they're gonna have some kind of settlement. Either they're gonna have some kind of settlement, or they're gonna just take it over the country. And then what will happen is, all the Western countries will be like, all right, since now Ukraine is controlled by Russia, we're cutting off all contact with Ukraine. And then it's just going to be a mess over there.
Yeah, I think pumping weapons in is the wrong thing to do.
Well, absolutely. I mean, to the point that Slavic was making in relation to giving all these civilians weapons, people shooting each other, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine about this earlier what do they think is going to happen with that? You can't have, a bunch of civilians are going to be taking on, like, in full-scale combat, not guerrilla warfare, right? Not response
Guerrilla
to
warfare.
occupation, but you're trying to take on, in a conventional sense, civilians are going to take on military. I don't think so. Not in conventional war.
The reason,
not a prayer. And let's be blunt. Putin is holding back on the level of airstrikes and artillery, like the direction of the artillery fire. Like they could be obliterating people if they wanted to.
Yeah, they could wipe the city off the map in a night.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's obvious, and that's why I'm getting kind of irritated to the point you guys are making about the sending all the weapons. What might be the end outcome? I think they're turning. I feel like the West is turning Ukraine into a pawn to their, as you were talking about, Slavic. It's Russia. It's the Russians now, and they're good. I guarantee you, we're not too many news cycles away from Putin is recreating the USSR. I mean, because they're already starting to make those talking points come out and trying to make the ultimate villain and all this kind of stuff. Which I'm not saying he's not being a villain in this context, but it's, I don't know.
The thing is that they're already kicking out, I think, one of the games that do soccer, like FIFA World Cup or something like that. They're taking out all the Russian players and stuff.
They kicked Russian cats and dogs away out of talent contests.
Yeah, I saw that.
and like dog shows and stuff. Oh, you're Russian. You're a Russian pussycat. You're banned. Like, I mean, it's just, this stuff is such bovine scatology at this point. A bunch of yuppie little high and mighty jackasses. I mean, they fired the conductor of was the Munich Philharmonic. I think it was Munich. Anyway, some German city, major city. Yeah, they fired him because he refused to condemn Putin publicly. Like, I mean, think about that here in the States, right? Do you condemn so and so? If not, you're fired. Yeah, because I control what the leader of my country does. Yeah, if I condemn him, it's gonna make him he's gonna surrender. Like, okay.
Putin's approval rating has gone up like 9 or 10% since this war started.
That's normal. I mean, they usually say that even people that in America, like George Bush, he got more popular because he went to war.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what's funny though is with Biden, it's the polar opposite.
Oh, yeah.
All this talk about war, Biden's rating is plummeting now that we're like, oh crap, we might have to go to war. People are talking about war. Oh man, Biden's president. Oh crap. Oh, we're totally screwed. Yeah, do you approve of Biden's response to the Russia-Ukraine crisis? No. It's everybody's kind of freaking out.
Russia has a different nuclear doctrine. They would use tactical nukes in a conventional war. It wouldn't be just we launched them at them, they would launch them back. They would actually use it in a war and say, it's justified.
I know I'm pretty ignorant on stuff like this, but at the very least, it looks to me like these guys just gonna use war as an excuse to make money, as they have so many times before. Not just like the what's it called, the people supporting Ukraine, but like those back in Russia as well. Like you said, Ukraine's just gonna be one big battlefield to be fighting proxy wars and whatnot, and we're just gonna grease the gears of our economies with innocent blood. It's unfortunate, but it's happened all throughout human history, and will continue to happen until
until the world ends.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, and they're gonna use this to take away our freedoms. Now you won't be able to hey, are you for Russian or against Russian? Okay, kicked off. Or okay, this guy must be an evil person because he thinks that the war should be stopped, or other stuff like that. Or even like the digital currency. I was listening to this economist, and he was talking about the new world order, what they want to achieve, And he was like, what they care about is having a digital currency they can control all assets. Also, they want to reduce the population. I mean, literally, whatever. If they wanted to start a war, it'd be playing into their game plan. I forget what it's called. There's some kind of like, they have like three of, some kind of steps that they want to take.
A nuclear war would be a quick way to shave off a couple billion lives, huh?
Even if it's not nuclear, I'm just thinking like this stuff plays into the whole thing about making people so scared that they'll give up their freedoms.
Oh yeah, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get this world looking like 1984 for real. If you ever read that book,
Man, we're way past. We're already past
Watch the
1984.
movie. Kind of sucks though.
way past 1984. You think
We're past 1984, dude. The rewrite of history and groupthink, politispeak, double speak, or double
hate
think.
speech?
It's just like we're so far, and the level of surveillance is actually right now is greater than the worst of the 1984 book. I mean, you got to
Yeah.
think about it, like it was much more like top level observation in the book. Right now,
Right.
they can remotely turn on the microphone on your cell phone, right, and listen and record you. They can access the camera in your TV or your webcams. They can remote access that stuff. Like nothing
Camera
you
your
can do.
phone too.
I talked about your phone. I mean, one of the reasons they instituted the non-removable batteries to cell phones was so that even if your phone is off, they can still track your GPS remotely.
Oh, that's why he started doing that stuff.
Yep, it was under the Obama administration. I believe it was in like 2012 they instituted that stuff, that regulation, and then they gave them all the manufacturers a couple years. Fast forward to now, and there's a couple of exceptions, but the vast majority of phones do not have the easily removed batteries.
I do. I got a shitty Cricket phone, but I could take the battery out this bug. That's why we tell people, if you go do something you ain't supposed to do, don't even cut your phone off. Take your battery out that mug and leave it at the house.
Put it on a taxi and leave.
You know what I'm saying? Because they gonna track you even if your phone's off. People think if they cut their phone off, it's enough. It ain't enough. You gotta disassemble that mug.
No, if you're planning on committing crime, like don't bring your phone, dumbass.
Just don't bring it. Exactly. Just
and more
do not bring it.
importantly, if you're going to be committing crime, don't live stream that shit, idiots. I tell you what, man, the number of people that it's like doing a selfie, like, hey, I'm about to go commit a crime, bro. I'm about to run in here and steal a bunch of shit. Watch this. And then they run into the store and on camera, like, videotape themselves committing crimes. I'm like, what are you this dumb? Like, you really this dumb? Okay. And then they're like, continue to live stream while they're like being chased by the cops and stuff. It's like, oh man. So you are just handing the whatever ADA gets your case. It's just like, okay, so who wants to take a bet on the odds of me convicting this dumbass? You know, it's like it's almost guaranteed.
They gave him all the firepower.
Oh, this blows me away. What's up, Waylon? How you doing? Welcome to the stream.
Hey, not bad, not bad. Just listening in, enjoying the whole time.
Anything on your mind you want to bring to the conversation?
Yeah, I blanked out. I was making some food there for a sec, so I'm not quite sure where we're at now.
Oh, right now we're just did some trash talking. We were talking about Russia and Ukraine, and then got into the surveillance state that we currently live in.
More pleasant of a conversation than the dumpster fire that was yesterday.
Yeah. I always see a common theme with all these things. Like with the pandemic, we see a lot of implementations that will probably last the majority of our time here. Like even if the pandemic's over, all these implementations to our structure of life going to be leaving. So I would look at the same thing with Ukraine and Russia. Watch for what are they going to implement? What are the measures? And like to me, it's all for the one world order, right? So
Yep.
how does it all tie in together?
They're going to vote to ban exotic pets here soon, next
What?
several days. So that's going to suck.
Yeah, we have super important things like making it criminal to take a lizard across state lines.
Right.
And if you also have a salamander, then that's life in jail right there. I mean,
5 years.
A salamander's life in jail?
5
No,
years.
I'm kidding.
Actually, it was
I was joking. If it's only a lizard, then you're okay. If you have a lizard and a salamander, then it's over. Like you're done.
Oh, okay.
Originally, my charge was up to 25 years in prison for importing something into the country, but I took a plea deal, and now it's up to 5. But they say it's probably just going to be probation. So let's hope.
Well, they figured that if you had to go do hard time, the other inmates wouldn't know how to handle themselves around you.
What do you mean? Because I'm so weird?
Well, no, I mean, because
because the crime is so strange.
well, no, I mean, like, what you in for, bro? Salamanders, and they're gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
And then there's gonna be a rumor that spreads through the inmate population of like, dude, have you ever heard about what's a salamander? Like, he's a salamander. What does that mean? And nobody's gonna know because nobody else is gonna be in prison for transporting or importing salamanders. So they're gonna think like, we don't know what this guy's in for. Like maybe he's a badass, so we better not mess with him because. And then he said something about lizards. What's he talking about, man? Lizards and salamanders. I don't know what's going on. Let's just leave this guy alone. And then before you know it, you're going to be going insane because even though you're going to be not being in solitary confinement, you're going to feel like you're in solitary confinement because nobody knows how to deal with the salamander lizard guy. That's just what's going to.
I can deal with solitary confinement. I'm in it right now.
That sounds like a movie plot right there.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Well, I think that in this day and age, it does not take much to come up with a more creative plot line than the blockbusters of Hollywood these days. Because
that's true.
It's just a bunch of superhero movies. That's all they putting out these days. It's just a bunch of superhero movies.
They're really starting to suck, and that's what.
Yeah,
really
they have no creation anymore.
Yeah, because half these superheroes they're using. Because I'm kind of a nerd and I've read some of the comics. They weren't that great as comic book characters. Like,
I mean, what's coming out this weekend? Moon Knight. Really?
Moon Knight's actually pretty good. Moon Knight's pretty good in the comics.
Non-binary man, woman.
I mean, okay, the character is okay, but I'm saying like he's getting his own movie. Like, really? Of all the characters, it's Moon Knight is who you're coming up with. Okay,
not a real thing.
I mean, he's kind of like Hood Batman. You might be able to make it work.
Maybe we'll see. I'm gonna go see. I got a date tomorrow, and I'm gonna go see Batman.
You're gonna go see the 1000th Batman movie they made.
Yep, I'm gonna go see Batman at noon.
Who's playing Batman this time?
It's just Batman, no S.
Robert Pattinson.
Oh, he's gonna be a terrible one.
Well, that's what okay. Listen, I flipped out when I heard he was playing Batman, right? And then
we're not getting Batflick.
And then I saw the trailer, and I was like, okay, maybe he can pull it off. We'll see. Because I was like, this is weird. Because let's be honest, they cast Ben Affleck as Batman. So,
but he was good though.
He was okay in the Justice League movie. He was horrific in Batman versus Superman.
Oh yeah, he was yeah.
I mean that movie. I try to, in my mind, that movie does not exist. It was so bad, and they butchered that whole storyline, and they interjected multiple other storylines into it, like out of freaking nowhere. And it's like, what is happening right now in this movie? I'll put you this way: there's only been like 3 movies in my entire life that I've walked out of, and I came really close to walking out of Batman versus Superman. It was just. Oh, it's horrible. But to the point of like the lack of creativity of Hollywood, it's like there are a plethora of just amazing storylines of the 80 plus years of comic book history.
Oh yeah, there's some great stories.
You telling me that of all of the things to choose from, you jackasses can't come up with something Like, just go use one of the badass stories and don't mess it up. Just keep it the way it is in the comic. Don't apply some new stupid crap to it, and you'll have a guaranteed blockbuster.
That's why Marvel's succeeding where DC failed. Like Marvel will change up stuff, but they've been keeping it pretty in line with most of the Earth 616 stuff and those kind of comics.
I don't know if they're necessarily in it for the entertainment value, anyways. Isn't it just profits? The quicker and easier they get out the movie, the more they make the
You broke
profit.
up. What about the Amazon one?
I got a
Yeah.
new superhero. It's non-binary autism spectrum person.
No, you just call him Alphabet Man. Just call him Alphabet Man.
You know, I bet there was already a character called Alphabet Man.
And I bet you he was cooler than that shit.
I can't imagine there. Let's Google this right now.
Alphabet Man. But this one's a whole new context.
Hey, I'm gonna jump off. I got some internet problems here, but I wanted to say this is not a financial advice. But if you guys got X spare cash, buy some gold and silver because oil's about to go to the moon.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it is. I was seeing like projections of at the minimum 150. Some people were projecting up to $250 a barrel. It's gonna be insane.
Yeah. All right, guys. You guys have a great day.
$5 a gallon or more coming up.
Oh well, Alphabet Man might not be. Oh, here he is, Alphabet Man. Yep.
Oh, you found it?
Yeah.
You got a screen share. You got a screen share. Hold up.
Alphabet Man right there. Oh wait, no, this is a. Nope. Hang on. This may be somebody. Is this a character or is this somebody's screen name? Let me see here.
Let's see. If nobody made an Alphabet Man, Jackson, you might be able to trademark that. You might be able to do something with it.
Non-binary autism spectrum person is a good one, I think.
Nah, his powers are just making people really gay.
His autism are his powers are making people uncomfortable and gay.
Oh yeah, there we go. It makes them uncomfortable, indecisive, and also gay. They wake up every day not knowing what they want to be. You know what I'm saying? 1 minute they identify as a basketball, and the next minute they identify as a sharp edge of a birthday cake. Like, you never know, bro. You never know.
Well, what cracks me up about that is like the pansexuals, like we love everything, right? It's like, so no. Let's break this down. You're greedy and you want to get some ass whenever you can. Like that's what that boils down to.
Damn.
You're a non-discriminating ass lover is what that boils down to. And let's just be honest. I had a good friend of mine in college who I'll put it this way. That dude was in the, let's see, 8 years that I was around him on a regular basis. I don't think that guy ever had sex with less than 3 women a week, like different women a week. And then fast forward, I don't know, like maybe 6 years in when I knew him, he had gotten so he decided to like broaden his horizons. And then it was like getting into everything. And it's like, yeah, let's think about this for a second. You had so much sex that you got bored and then decided to try out something new. Like, let's just be honest, because you were that was all you did all the time. And I don't know.
How do people even get that much sex, man? Like, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's because the state I live in, or
It's about confidence. I don't have any confidence.
Well, I won't. I'm not going to share. And then this is children at some point may listen to this. I won't share all the stuff. Let's just say if you have more than the average person you're working with, and then you at parties and such, you let it hang out the bottom of your shorts. It's amazing the magic that happens on. Yeah.
Oh, so he got that pickle print. That's the only friendly way to say it. He got a pickle print. That's the only way. That's all I can think of. I see what he's doing now. That. I got a personal story. I can't share it for those same reasons. I ain't too proud of it either. You know, I'm not necessarily proud of it because it does go against my code. It caught me off guard. The flesh is weak. All right. I was caught lacking, but I see what LPP meant by that because I accidentally had an incident with this Latino chick. About that. But that's besides the
Banged
point,
two
though.
Latino
But,
chicks.
you know, but let's just say I made the mistake of accidentally leaving my pickle print out, and the rest was the rest. You know, and yeah.
Yeah, we're a bunch of dudes here.
I mean, yeah, but I try not to sleep with just anyone, bro. These days, man, you don't know what the hell people got, bro. They got an STD that literally eats your cucumber, bro. They got a whole STD. You just eat the skin of it off or something, bro. Like, I found out about that. I'm like, yo, ain't no way, bro. Ain't no way. Hey, nah, man. Look,
Hey, no, listen, Jackson. I don't know if you you got the memo, but
What?
that bug that TJ's talking about will eat through that.
It'll eat through it.
It's like acid, man. It's gonna get you.
It is gonna eat.
No
It'll
protection.
literally eat the skin off of it.
I mean, I gotta go without them. But I've used them on one girl. Condoms.
So this is why earlier Jackson was talking about he may have a bunch of little Jacksons running around.
Yeah, right.
He liked his what's it called? He liking his cream pies. Oh, can I say that? Do they know what a cream pie? I don't know.
No, they don't. No one knows what that means.
I don't think they're gonna know what that means.
Like
But that's what
15.
you've been doing. That's what you've been out here. Okay.
Jackson Rowe, Woman World 3.
I mean, you can't all the way blame Jackson. They let him do it. They can always say no. They can always make him put something on. It take two.
They always say they're on birth control, but I think they're lying.
You know they lying, bro. They ain't no dang birth control.
They're not on birth control.
They ain't never on birth control. You know they on birth control when you see that pill in their arm or something.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Hey, so I'm pretty sure that Beamsy is also the sock account that makes fun of Hovend.
Who make fun of Hovind? Everybody making fun of Hovind these days. They can't keep him out of his head.
Well, true, but I'm listening.
I make fun of Hovind, but I actually like Hovind too at the same time.
He seems like a wholesome guy.
Weird dynamic.
Yeah, I'm watching this little video like somebody was posting that supposedly calling me out, and I'm listening to the guy's voice. And I'm pretty sure it's Beamsy.
2K subscribers in, you already got people trying to beef with the drip. That's crazy.
Well, I'm really cracking up. This idiot is continuing to argue that the genetic code is just chemical reactions. What the?
I've heard that talking point. So I'm not even a science guy, but I've heard something along those lines. Like people debate that so many times, like debating on like what DNA is and whatnot. Like whether it's like
I don't know how many times I have to break this down and delineate that the genetic code. The DNA is the medium of the genetic code. Not all deoxyribonucleic acid is code. There's non-coding regions. There's regulatory functions. And Beamsy, I have shown so many papers on this from freaking atheist researchers that clearly establish that it is a freaking code. And the fact that you don't want to accept this is just, I mean, you're an idiot, dude. You claim to have a master's in biology or whatever it was, and some random weird thing, and you don't think that there's actually a code. I mean, I don't know how many. It's almost getting old at this point to try and explain this to freaking dumbasses who make all of these, talking points and sit here and like get on high horses about how they have master's degrees in this X, Y, and Z and blah 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 blah. And it's like, this is so such well established crap. I don't understand why you people continue to go like desperately be idiots. It's really fascinating.
Even Richard Dawkins says it's a code, so I don't understand.
It's a code.
Yeah.
Okay. Beamsy says, I have read your links and you're the one that's speaking out of your ass.
Oh.
This guy
He
is so
donated
dumb.
just to say that?
No, he didn't do a super chat. He just
Oh.
He's such a moron. Good grief. That guy is so dumb. Let's just
in biology, I suppose it would have to be the double helix, Watson and Crick discovery of the structure of DNA, which was far more than just the discovery, the crystallographic work, discovering the structure of a big molecule. Because what that led up to was a major revolution in which much of biology became a sort of branch of information technology. The consequence of the Watson-Crick discovery, with all that it led on to, the DNA code and the sort of various genome projects that are going on now, is that genes, which from my point of view are absolutely central to biology, genes are information. They are coded information. It even looks like computer information. I mean, a chromosome is a great long computer tape. It's linear, it runs one-dimensional, digital code. It's not binary, it's quaternary, but apart from that, it's just the same as computer tape. It's read in sequence. It's copied and pasted from one part of the organism to another in just the same way as a computer programmer would copy and paste. So biology has turned into computer science, and the sort of mystification of biology, which was still possible when people could talk about a life force, a vital fluid, things like that, essentially skyhook explanations, that's completely out. You can never.
I think the core idea behind synthetic biology is that biology is fundamentally programmable because it runs on digital code in the form of DNA. And we can read that code with DNA sequencing. We can write that code with DNA synthesis or DNA printing. And if you can read and write code and you have a machine that'll run it, which is sort of how we saw a cell, that's programming, right? And you could ask, how expensive is this? How reliable, Jason, is it to program cells? Those are fair questions. But is biology fundamentally programmable? The answer is yes. That's inarguable because it runs on code that we can read and write, all right?
This is the reason why I love biology, though. Biology is self-assembling nanotechnology with a built-in programming language. No other nanotechnology has this. This is really important.
Franchise Jurassic Park, probably. Start off as a novel by Michael Crichton, then adapt to a movie by
who is playing something in the background?
This is the Game of Books, where we look at the good and bad.
Anyway, it's amazing how Beamsy is like now talking trash about like Ukraine and Russia after doing a whole freaking video talking trash about how there is no code. I mean, it's just amazing to me. There's like some weird tapping in the background.
Yeah, it's my dumb speaker. It always does that. I don't know why.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, man. Maybe I just have to embarrass this guy a little bit more. Let's see.
All right, y'all. I got to get to work tomorrow. I'm going to call tonight. Y'all stay blessed.
You too, man.
Night.
Yeah, we're going to call it night in about 10 minutes. What's up, Crimson Air? How you doing? Let's see. Yeah, and by the way, for Beamsy, this concept right here, can a medium have multiple functions? And if you can't grasp the point that's being made by the braille that hand is on in the picture, and how the medium is not necessarily the message, even though it can contain the message, I put that together purely to dumb things down for idiots like you who can't seem to grasp the fact that the medium doesn't matter. It is not. It is not the information itself. I just don't understand how hard this is to grasp. But let's get over to the fun stuff. I won't bore you with code mappings. I know that'll go over your head. Let's get to the language. Yeah, I'm not gonna do all this stuff right now. He won't actually pay attention anyway. Grimsner, are you there, man? Welcome
Hey,
to the
John.
stream.
Yeah, I saw you were doing a stream on AFTERSHOW on evolution, and I thought I'd pop in for a little bit since you guys were talking about biology, genetics, and all of that. I had contacted you briefly outside of YouTube. I wanted to consult you on the. I've been trying to work out a probability against Darwinism, the Darwinian model, and I've been trying to find out where to start the irreducible complexity to try to work my way to find out exactly where to start with that, whether to begin at the codon level or the protein or the enzymes.
I would say
so
at the codon. I would say at the codon level, because you have to remember that there is no. Basically, the pairing is not produced by, like, the order of the pairing, right? Is not produced by chemical affinity. So, like, there is no chemical bond between the base pairs. There's a chemical bond to the backbone, and there's a hydrogen bond between the bases, but there's no chemical bond to the pair next to it. So you have a completely neutral, from a chemical perspective, it's neutral. So the order that ends up being assigned, in order for you to get the appropriate order to create the sequences and all that kind of stuff, right? Before you even account for the value assignments, you're dealing with complete and utter randomness, which comes into play, which is why, just to get the base pairs in the correct order that are needed, right? So it's recognized the simplest forms of life, need no less than like 280 something thousand base pairs, right? So when you think about the math on that, it's like, okay, so that surpasses plausibility. And that's just to get them in order. That's before you even account for, like, how the heck do you even get the value assignments to the codons?
Yeah,
right?
and where I had a little confusion is that I had previously thought that within a gene code strand where you have 64 codons, when I Googled it, I found what I saw was that that you could the maximum number of unique combinations you can have from the 5 nucleotides, pairing 3 of them at a time, would be 64 unique combinations. But it seems like within a functioning genome, there are non-overlapping redundancies. And so is it correct that that it's not necessarily the case that it's always 64 unique combinations, but that you have redundancies which all serve to maintain the integrity of the code?
Yes and no. So yes, in terms like the redundancies, okay, we've got multiple codons that equal the same amino acid, all that kind of stuff, right? But what they're now discovering is that yes, there's redundancy aspect to it in terms of a quality aspect and continuing to function even if there's swaps, right? And what we thought were neutral, synonymous replacements and such. What we're now discovering is that there's additional layers of information that is not codon to amino acid assignments. It's that there's additional information or instructional components, like especially specifically in relation to things like translational pausing, right? So that ultimately influence the three-dimensional outcome of the polypeptide that's being formed. So you have yes, it needs to be this amino acid, and yes, there's a codon. There's two different codons that mean the same thing. However, the codon A makes the timing different than codon B, even though it's the same amino acid. And then they're finding out now that in many, many instances, if you swap out the synonymous ones, you actually do not end up getting the correct three-dimensional fold of the peptide that's being formed. So
that's interesting.
So that's just one of many additional layers they're now discovering. There's also, I got a paper in my folder about this on the triplet of triplet codes. And now they're also discovering that I think it's up to the 5 adjacent codons to the one that's currently being read by the ribosome. The adjacent codons also influence the structure and the way the end outcome is. So we've been thinking, oh, it just has to be this codon, or it can be swapped out for synonymous codon. No big deal. But then we're finding out that, oh wait, yes, we might have the correct codon, or sorry, the correct amino acid being brought in. However, not only is the timing might be off, it can also be directly impacting because it doesn't interact chemically with the adjacent codons like the other one would, the original one did. You actually have you might end up getting a working product at the end, but it's inferior to the other one. So yes, the redundancy can make it so it'll still work, although not in many cases it doesn't work. But in many of them, it will still work. It just is inferior. So you think about that in the context of like, oh, we can build you can build a building, but if you have inferior steel, it's probably going to be way more susceptible to collapse, right?
Right, exactly.
It's the exact same concept we're discovering applies to protein synthesis. Of yes, it might be the correct correct amino acid, but the timing was off, or the structure, the impact on the surrounding codons also impacted it. And there's all these different things, right, that we didn't even realize were in play up until relatively recently. And now there's been a massive explosion of research into those types of concepts, which is where in communication theory, you've got multiplexing, which is where you can have on the same channel, you can have multiple messages being transmitted as long as you have a decoder on the other end that knows to look for all the different formats that are being sent, right? And one of the things that they discovered relatively recently is that, again, because our technology has just recently advanced to where we were able to even start doing that ourselves, right? Anyway, some researchers went and did an analysis. And it turns out that the genetic code and the quaternary aspects of it are actually optimal for multiplex coding. So that led to a lot of people being like, oh, I wonder if there's other messages being sent on what we think is just an mRNA strand, right? Oh, what is just mRNA? It's, one codon, one amino acid, blah, 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 right? And then now they're finding out oh, there's all these additional layers of information that are being sent. We just didn't even know to look for this. And it's blowing some minds. What's up, Jackson?
Hey, I'm going to get off. It's morning time in Ukraine, so I'm going to start documenting tank losses some more.
All right. Well, good talking to you, man. You have a great night.
I got 100,000 views in the last 2 days on my Twitter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Not making any money from it, but it's cool. All right. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.
All right. Have a good one.
Okay.
Take care.
So that raised an interesting question for me because have they ever been able to work out have they been able to, at the very least, guess what the greatest degradation a genome can sustain at the codon level to which it would no longer be able to yield a viable copy, or at the very least a copy that is still functional, but that is it would be the last.
I forget the exact numbers on this. Seigart actually wrote a paper on this, and he and I have talked about this. I forget what the exact numbers were, but yeah, in the modern era, the fidelity necessity is like 99 something percent is required. So all of the huge portion of the suppositions from an evolutionary biology perspective basically have to suspend the empirically observed evidence of the fidelity requirements that we have to have now in order for things to survive. And so it's like, oh, well, in the past, we didn't have all these error correction mechanisms, and therefore all this extra evolution was allowed, and somehow, therefore, all this cool stuff happened. And it's like, well, wait a minute, let's look at the reality. So now we observe ridiculously badass error correction codes and mechanisms to make sure we have ridiculously high fidelity, right? And we know, based on real world observation, that unless you maintain extraordinarily high fidelity, you have all sorts of crazy negative effects, right? But somehow, when we didn't have all that, we didn't die, and we somehow got better. Like, that's what's being argued. And I mean, literally, that's what's being argued. And to me, that's why I have such a hard time with this stuff. Like, I really don't care about the time.
Well, I mean,
It's one of the reasons I say, like, I don't give a rat's ass about the time factor, right? Like, whether it's 6,000 years or 4.5 billion or 2 billion or whatever, right? I don't care, because the math says this is not remotely plausible. And it doesn't matter how long your timeline is. I don't care how many billions of years you want to work with. This is not plausible.
It's one thing to look at science, but like you said, when you take what you can observe, and then you cross a line and you start to make inferences, and when you try to fill in the gaps of where science doesn't do the job, that's where I would say you go into faith. And really that's what it all falls down to, is faith. And I try to emphasize on that, but I just felt it would be most compelling if I could give out the numerical counterparts to just simply saying that. And I appreciate all the help I've gotten from within the Christian community in the field of genetics. I got an A in biology in high school, but I might as well be a lifetime ago. Barely remember anything from back then. I just remember looking at sorry, I must have cut out for a little bit. I got an A. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's just been a long time ago. I remember looking through magnifiers, looking at amoebas and all of that fascinating stuff. But it's just been a really long time. One last thing I wanted to ask about was the amino acid. It seems like there's a classification on the internet, at least, for what they consider to be a functional amino acid, which is one that can regulate key metabolic pathways to improve biological function. So when I saw that,
you mean like protein? Because amino acids make up the protein, and then the proteins and the enzymes are going to be what does what you're talking about. I think that maybe what you're referring to.
Yeah, I was a little confused by that, because when I saw the word functional amino acid, that gave me the impression that there were such thing as a non-functional amino acid. But is it more along the the case that the amino acids all bear utility in the same sense that the letters of the alphabet bear utility, but that in order to achieve higher function, it depends on intelligent arrangement of those letters or amino acids, right?
Well, okay, so the amino acids are arranged in an order to create the functional protein, or the polypeptide,
proteins, right?
Or the polypeptides that'll be used to create the proteins. But but now in the context of, like, there is a differentiation in terms of what types of amino acids can be utilized, and that's where you get into like the left-handed and the right-handed aspect. And same thing with the
well, I took note of because when I looked it up, I saw that it's written that amino acids can be arranged into thousands of combinations to form a variety of proteins. So I was wondering just how many thousands. Are we talking just a few thousand or tens of thousands?
Oh no, there's trillions of possible combinations.
Oh wow, okay.
Oh yeah.
So forget about the one. No, I mean just going from the codon, 1 out of 64 to the X number power of whatever the genome size is now. To take that into account, the amino acid.
This is the whole, like, this can just form into the appropriate. Okay, so Douglas Axe did a whole study when he was at Cambridge on the functional proteins versus non-functional, right? And it was, I think it was 10 to the 77th non-functional to functional. So basically ridiculously more non-functional possibilities than functional. Like we can't even comprehend that number, right? You have 10 to the 77th to 1. Like, come on. It's ridiculous. The where was I going with that? Anyway, when you look at so all the stuff, so you have like all the amino acids, almost all of them. There's a couple minor exceptions, but we use, like, life uses left-handed amino acids, right? Not the right-handed. There's the right-handed version, but we only use the left-handed version. And it's the mirror image of the other one, right? But the ones that are functional that we see, that we use in all forms of life, are left-handed. And then something we've discovered relatively recently, and I say recently, I mean the concept didn't even exist until about a decade ago, and that's the chiral-induced spin selectivity, which is they're finding out that, like, there's all sorts of additional significance that we didn't even realize about the necessity of the homochirality of the amino acids. And like, one of the things that are being discovered is like, maybe one of the reasons we don't literally blow up is because chiral-induced spin selectivity enables the transfer of energy to be done in a way that reduces heat. Otherwise, it's one of the things I've been trying to figure out, right? Is like, with all this energy transfer, like, how are we not overheating, right? How is our brain, the amount of all the processing stuff that's going on in our brain, it would take, thousands and thousands of acres of, servers and everything to do what we're talking about. The power consumption would be astronomical, right? For the amount of processing that's done by our brains, right? But then somehow the amount of energy we use is minimal comparatively, right? Well, that's another one of the aspects of chiral-induced spin selectivity. Hey, we're being able to efficiently transfer the information, not overheat. But again, we didn't even know what that was. The research didn't even start on it until about a decade ago. And that's why I just laugh my ass off at dumbasses like Beamsy talking trash inside chat about it's just chemical reactions when, anyway, enough of my diatribe.
Another thing too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, John, but isn't it true that the ribosome reads the nucleotide chains in a way that's completely arbitrary to what specific one of the four?
It's arbitrary value assignment. There's papers on this, and one of the reasons we know it's arbitrary is because we've been able to reprogram them to read it in a different way. So,
right, I think that
we're able to swap. We can swap the value assignments, and then it's not chemically determined. Like, we reprogrammed it, right? Because the other part that just drives me up the wall, and this is why I argue that Beamsy, if he did actually get his master's degree in biology or whatever he claims, mustn't have been paying attention, because there is no chemical reaction between the codon and the amino acid it represents. There is no direct chemical action between the codon and the amino acid. So if you want to claim something's not freaking arbitrary, but it never actually chemically, and it's just chemical reactions, but it doesn't actually chemically interact, then you're an idiot and don't grasp the basics. And just to substantiate my point, let me see if I can find that little video clip, which I love playing. It's from MIT. Where did I put that?
I think this is such an interesting sort of chicken and egg problem that they've got here. Because you kind of need to be able to read the right chain of amino acids, right? And do you have to program the ribosome to do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many proteins. There's like a ridiculous amount of components and different complexes that are used to read it. It's nuts, man.
So a triplet code with 4 bases covers everything we need here. Okay, we have start codons and stop codons we have to keep in mind listed here. Okay, and as a reminder, right, in translation, the amino acids are delivered by the amino acyl tRNAs. Okay, so the mRNA does not recognize these amino acids directly. We need the tRNAs that allows this reading to occur.
So that's
yeah.
This coming from the moron who thinks that A, T, C, and G is information and not just abbreviations. Oh my lord, dude, you are honestly an idiot. You're seriously an idiot. I've done full presentations about this, breaking down A, T, C, and G are the base letters of the freaking alphabet that's being used in the genetic code. And then you have strings that are being used to create the freaking syntax. And then you have the semantic value assignments. Like, this is so, I mean, dude. Beamsy, look at the screen, you freaking moron. Look at the screen, okay? We're going to try this one more time for an idiot, ladies and gentlemen. I just don't even know how to do this. How many times I have to do this over and over again for morons that live in denial of basic reality. Where did I put that freaking slide? Oh, just my other presentation. Let me see. Okay. You have strings, code words, and sequences. Okay. You get your source alphabet is being translated into your target alphabet. You have to have a decoder, an encoder, and a decoder that know both the source and the target. Okay. In this context, A is 0, B is 0, 1, C is 0, 1, 1. Okay. This is in binary. All right. The exact same logic is applied. Oh my, dude, Beamsy, you are seriously dumb, dude. Adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine is what they mean, you dumbass. Like, I understand that. That's the chemicals that they are, but they're the medium that's being used to represent. Oh, okay. I don't even know how to deal with this guy. He's just so dumb. It's amazing. Anyway.
I mean, I've just had to look at the odds in forming a series of right codons for what you need to just start at the base level of genetics. But I mean, now that I have, and John, did you say 10 to the 77 power? That would be for the left-handed amino acids only, right? Not.
No, that's the ratio of functional to non-functional protein sequences or amino acid sequences becoming a functional polypeptide.
Oh, okay. Amino acid sequences. Okay. And that would be all left-handed, of course, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the odds are just so over. It's absurd to think. And I've raised this point to an atheist recently, and the only response that I've gotten was that, well, I mean, you have things that were having high odds of it happening in real life anyway, and they appeal to examples like, you know, winning the lottery, or, you know, the sperm and egg, that one sperm happening. But the point,
trillions upon
the,
trillions upon trillions. I mean,
yeah,
there is just
yeah. The point that they're
trillions.
missing is they're conflating inevitability with repeatability. It's not about something that was unlikely to happening, but rather that same event happening over and over and over again perpetually for X number of billions of years. It's absurd. So just hearing what I've heard tonight is already. I mean, I used to kind of, because it's really a slippery concept in the way that they, you know, present themselves. They make it sound convincing, and then they say, yeah, you know, beneficial mutations here and there, and natural selection, and you just throw out those words, and it makes, you know, kind of goes over your head sometimes, and you kind of take it for granted. But knowing these odds, it's utterly,
well, like
it's impossible.
Eugene Koonin, for example, they calculated he has an H index of 266. Okay, so if anybody doesn't know what that means, H index is basically like the rating of how badass of a scientist you are. Okay, and if you have an H index of 20, you're considered pretty good. Okay, if you get to an H index of 70, you're like a badass. Okay, we're talking about somebody who has an H index of 266. Okay, like whole nother playing field. Okay, and he's an evolutionary biologist, the big dog at the NIH, all that kind of stuff, right? And they did the math on the probability of just the factors necessary for DNA replication. Okay, not everything, not the entire cell, like just what you would need to conduct DNA replication. Okay, and the probability was 1 in 10 to the 1018th power. That's just for the DNA replication mechanisms. Okay, 1 in 10 to the 1018th power. So this is why when I listen to Evo atheists on YouTube talk a bunch of trash about how like the improbability is not that big a deal and it's just simultaneous, you're not taking into account the fact that there were all sorts of simultaneous actions happening, and they weren't just happening all linearly. And I'm like, I give no you know what's about. They can all be happening at the same time, you freaking idiot. The total number of particle actions available to work with, therefore the total number, like the maximum amount of probabilistic resources available to you is 1 in 10 it's a 10 to the 140th power, right? That's total particle actions, period, of everything for the entire freaking universe, right? That's the current estimate, right? You have in the entire universe, you have no more than 10 to the 80th of total freaking atoms or particles, sorry, like 10 to the 80th total. And you're saying that the improbability is 1 in 10 to the 1018th power just to get the DNA replication mechanisms. You can have, like, again, you can have all the simultaneous actions you want. There's not enough to work with to overcome the improbability. There are not enough chances available. Hence why I say things like, what do we know beyond all doubt from an empirically observed perspective that things that are improbable on the same scale, what do we know is the one thing that beyond doubt can overcome staggering improbabilities like that? Oh, wait, it's intelligent agents. We know that beyond doubt. That is a known, proven beyond all doubt fact. Intelligent agents can overcome improbability, no problem. And yet we're told that that is a completely irrational, God of the gaps, fantasy land, cognitive bias driven conclusion. And then we have idiots like Beamsy who think that just because we are able to use an A to represent A, C, T, and G to represent the bases, that from a coding perspective, they don't actually represent the base letters of the codons. They're utilized to make the codons, right? Which are then equal to an amino acid. They do not become, they don't transform into, they are equal to an amino acid in a digital format. And part of the reason I have this chart up here is you have the genetic code in binary representation, right? And then the actual amino acid that is, right? So you have the code, UUU, and then you have a binary representation, and then you have the actual amino acid, right? We do this. You could assign this to, we can use whatever symbol we want. You could also have this be in dots and dashes from Morse code, right? And at the same time, only morons like Beamsy think that the 00000 in actual computer code, when it's actually being executed by your computer, it's electrical impulses, you freaking dumbass. Like what they're represented by on the screen right now has nothing to do with whether or not from a execution perspective, the medium can be something different. It's like, I don't understand why this is so difficult for atheists to grasp. It really blows me away every time.
Would this happen to be the same individual that said the gene code isn't a code at all, but that it's simply a group of chemicals like soda pop, something to that effect?
No, that was Godless Engineer.
Oh, okay.
I just want to quickly say something. It's 10 to the 80th atoms and 10 to the 90th particles. That's all.
Oh yeah, okay. You said because I said particles, didn't I? So 10 to the 8th atoms, 10 to the 90th particles, and I think it's 10 to the 140th total actions. I believe is the total particle actions.
Yeah, it's impossible. There's just not enough. There's not enough time, or even like particles to allow enough tries to get things right, and the total possible combinations is absolutely mind-boggling.
Well,
and I don't know, is this true, John? You'd know this. They say that if there was 1 grain of sand extra created somewhere in the universe, that there would have been runaway gravitational collapse, and that life would have been impossible. How do they measure that? I mean, that seems like pretty hard to measure to me.
I forget. I think it's like they say actually the size of a dime, I believe was the actual number. But
okay,
I forget the exact way they calculated it, but it's something to that effect, that if it was just that small amount off balance, then we'd either contract or I think collapse. I think we have a big crunch or something. I forget. I'll have to look that up again. And then like Borel's law too is in relation to the total amount of those atoms.
Oh, that's just fine tuning is what I meant. There's incredible fine tuning. It's amazing because if that's true, then whether God created it or the Big Bang created it, there had to be that precision in the amount of matter in the universe, or there'd be runaway gravitational collapse and life would be impossible. I mean, it's crazy.
Yep. Oh, so Testament has this is an excellent book, Quantum Enigma by Bruce Rosenblum and Fred Kuttner. Excellent book. I read that 8 or 9 years ago. Phenomenal book. A couple, they actually directly tackle the observer problem in quantum mechanics and basically call out a bunch of their peers, and they're basically like, so none of us in the quantum mechanics arena want to truly address the underlying reality that the observer is kind of a big deal, and we want to make up all these reasons why we can ignore it and don't actually have to address it, but it's the gigantic elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And to me, ultimately, it boils down to, if the observer is necessary, then it is also necessary that an external agent, conscious agent, was required for the universe to come into existence, who was not dependent on the material. Like, it becomes a very straightforward recognition of why God existing is the most rational conclusion, and not being subject to space and time.
Yeah, and to top off the list of probabilities that we're addressing, where you had previously mentioned to be the introns that were previously thought to simply be, junk areas of the DNA that they later found are where the instructions for the variable gene configuration splicing signals to versus the exons that the sections of the mRNA that translate proteins. When I looked that up, I saw, and I'm not sure how reliable. I assume this is regarding the human genome, but I got a number of 207,344. Would that does that sound right? For the introns, the exons would be 233,785.
Okay, I'm not sure what the context is being referred to.
Concerning introns and extrons within the exons within the human genome, I tried to look up the number as to exactly how many of those there are, and when I Googled it, I got a number of 207,344 for the number of introns, and 233,785 for the number of exons.
Those numbers seem really small.
Oh, so it's even bigger than that. Well,
yeah. I mean, you have to think about like the Titan protein, for example, is like 33,400 and something amino acids long. So it's so you're like over 100,000 codons are necessary for that. So you have, I mean, that's just one protein, and there's a bunch of introns.
Okay, yeah, then it's even more than that. But
yeah,
I mean,
you also have to think about, like, we have no less than 20,000 genes like that code for proteins, right? And are going to have exons and introns in them. So, and there's obviously each gene sequence has a bunch of exons, a bunch of introns.
I have a doc on this, on the probabilities, spoken by Jason Lyle, or one of them anyway. I'll find it.
Okay. But yeah, that's what I said, man. Like, this stuff, it's like when you really start to go down the rabbit holes of not just the improbability, but whether or not something is plausible, right? So with the splicing signals and the fact that the splicing signals are mostly in the introns, they're in these specific spots to enable the spliceosomes to come back in and rearrange portions of the exons to the appropriate spot. And then now you have a new function, but it's being done purposely. And these signals must be in place, obviously, have to already be there prior to the restructuring of the functional information, right? To create a new, or not necessarily a different outcome. And then where is the signal coming in that is, like, what's the preceding information transfer that's taking place in order to result in the variation of the expression of this gene sequence, right? And this is where crazy crap like the talon proteins come into play, right? We thought forever they were just part of like a scaffold protein. Well, whatever, it's boring. And then what do? We find out that it's got 13 binary switches on it, and it works with other proteins in real time to transfer information, right? And then it's literally sends signals down the microtubules into the nucleus, and they directly result in based on the input, the input being received by the talon protein, then its output in an information signal going into the nucleus directly results in variable expression of genes. Like, we know this. This is quantified. This is observed. This is tested. And like, I don't know if everything I just said made sense to everybody, but that's some mind-bending stuff. And anybody who runs around being like, it's just chemical reactions, is an idiot and does not know what they're talking about. They may be an uninformed idiot, but they're an idiot. And like Beamsy, he hasn't really been talking. I know he's still in the side chat, but he's not talking as much. Maybe he's like realized that he's a freaking moron. But like, I interviewed Professor Golf like 2 or 3 months ago on this exact topic. And like, go watch the interview, go read his papers. He's not a Christian. He's not a theist. Okay. He's just a researcher doing this stuff. Like, if you don't think it's code and like all this stuff is code, like, go take it up with the PhDs to write the freaking papers, man. Like, I'm sorry that you're a moron, but that's not my problem. And you need to go talk to these guys and tell them how they're wrong. And actually, you know what, Beamsy, let's, one of my favorite clips I love to play. Let's play it just for you.
I'm talking at the moment with Perry Marshall and Kevin Ham. Perry Marshall is from Chicago in the United States, and Kevin Ham is from Vancouver in Canada. And we have just taken part in the United Kingdom launch of a huge prize to be won by anybody who can produce the genetic code or a genetic code via natural process generating it itself. Mm-hmm. Perry, have I got that right, first of all?
That's right. Any code, any encoding, message decoding system that can come out of an emergent property from chemicals to code would qualify. Yes. And I think it's one of the most fundamental questions in all of science. And it just hasn't gotten the attention that it deserves.
That's right, it hasn't. And I think that's partly why we've been highlighting it in the meeting that we've just had here at the Royal Society in London. You can't get much more prestigious than that, can you?
No, it's
by the way.
It's delightful.
Yes. Now, question perhaps also to Kevin, does it really need to be 10 million? I'm a scientist. To me, that's a huge sum of money.
Yeah, so evolutionists say, they profess their confidence in their model, but really, if they want to put anything on the table, that there you have it.
Yep. Well, and as I love to say, and I said to Godless Engineer in my debate with him, my opening statement, damn, dude, 10 million's on the line. You need to fly on over to London, go meet up with the Royal Society, and let them know how they're being completely conned, because there is no code. It's just chemicals spewing around, and the A, T, C, and G, that's just representations of the chemicals, okay? Like, you just don't know what you're talking about. There is no code. This is made up. I know you guys are like members of the Royal Society and you've recognized this. And I know that you guys are judging the competition to determine whether or not a code has been created. And I'm assuming that you guys understand this, given the fact that you've written papers on the digital code in DNA. But I mean, I may be wrong. I might just be making all of this up, ladies and gentlemen. But hey, there's 10 million on the line. So, dude, you need to fly on over there and be like, listen, I'm going to help save you guys $10 million. Okay. So why don't you just cut me a check for like 5, and then I'll tell you how to save the other 5 million. Go do that, Beamsy. And you can just show the rest of us how we don't know what we're talking about. I mean, just gets me every time.
Now, for those in the audience who, because I know it's easy to fall into that camp, but I noticed that a lot of people who are evolutionists who are honest on the topic, they frequently look to genetic diversity. Like how before earlier tonight, SFT and Jackson Rowe were going about the Neanderthals and all the speciation and this and that. Yes, that's all true. We don't deny speciation. We don't deny genetic variations or microevolution. That happens. But see, the fallacy is with the fallacy within Darwinianism is that they conflate speciation with the advancement or the growth of genetic complexity or the increase in genetic interdependency within the system. The when you have a species branching off, that's always a loss of information. You have a parent set of a parent genetic data set, and then you lose bits and pieces here and there, and then you have a group that branches out, and what you end up with is a subclass that is always, or to my knowledge always, but at the very least almost always inferior to the original. And so you have to keep in mind that to conflate the loss of information with gaining information in a way that isn't deleterious to the overall function of the organism is just not what we observe within the world in which we live through our scientific apparatus. We just don't observe that, and that's why you have creationists that give out the challenge, to present examples of beneficial mutations that can add to, and really it's impossible. I think John has demonstrated that tonight. It doesn't really take much to realize that. But there comes a time where it really becomes pointless in pointing out the impossibility of something happening on its own like that, but rather just whether a person is willing to come to grips with reality. In the ancient days, people didn't need this science to strengthen their faith. They had the witness of the prophets. From time to time, they witnessed miracles and all of that. But those days are over, and I don't believe it. I don't believe for a second that it's a coincidence that now we have access to these scientific fields that show us without a doubt that these things cannot happen on its own. It takes intelligence, and really they are without an excuse. I mean, to reject this is really, I really don't see a point in. They might as well be rejecting a direct sign from God. If God were to appear before their eyes and speak to them audibly, face to face, they might as well reject that, as far as I can tell. So it's, I mean, that's how I take it. But for those who are genuinely confused about it, like I used to be an evolution believer back when I was in grade school, first going into high school. It was shortly after that I was made aware of the inconsistencies within the evolutionary model when I started attending church, and that was enough for and they didn't even get into all this the genetic complexity involving the left-handed amino acid sequences, the codon, the base set, being joined by hydrogen and working out in a set of 64 triple paired codons, where you have 20, and they code for 20 amino acids, and those amino acids have to be arranged into thousands of different combinations to form a variety of proteins, of which you need you have an odds of 1 out of 10 to the 77th power in order to get a functional left-handed amino acid sequence. And they didn't even get to any of that. They just pointed out the inconsistencies within the human evolutionary model, and I saw it, and I felt it was coherent, and that was it for me. That was all I needed, and that was when I decided to receive the faith of Jesus Christ. And now that I have this information, I have the confidence now to talk about it and to just present it. And if they reject it on the grounds of, well, it's not genetic, it's not really a code, it's just, soda chemicals, or it's well, you give a long enough, no, no, that's not the point. The point is, if you were to win the Powerball lottery, you could attribute that to chance. I mean, people win the lottery all the time. But if you were to win the Powerball over and over and over again, perpetually, no one in their right mind would think, even for a second, that was pure luck, pure chance. So that's all I have to say about that.
Well, and that's a good point. I've used that analogy similarly. It's because here's the thing with the Powerball, right? You just have to have picked the numbers, right? It doesn't matter what order you picked the numbers in order to win, right?
True. Yeah.
However, in this context, and what we're talking about, not only do you have to
the right order,
you have to pick the correct numbers, and you have to pick them in the correct order. And instead of what's the Powerball? It's like 7 numbers or whatever. Somebody winning the Powerball more than once, to your point, would be like, okay, maybe, because it's happened before, right? But if you did it 5, 6, 7 times, come on, like, you're cheating. Something's going on. There's no way, right? But then what if you had to pick 150 numbers
in the right order, in the right time,
order, right?
It's absurd.
It's not even remotely plausible, right? If somebody won the lottery and there was 150 numbers, which all must be selected in the appropriate order, and you won that, people will be like, okay, but then you won it again. Now let's think about it in the context of it's 1,000.
You've got an equal number of left-handed sugars in between those amino acids that have to be, all exactly right as well.
Right. Well, exactly. But I'm saying, like, think about this. You need like for the helicase, right? The helicase is like 970 something amino acids long, right? 900, almost 1,000. It's 900. I think it's like 972 or something like that. So basically, for easy math purposes, you have to pick 1,000 numbers in a row correctly. I don't know that nobody would ever conclude that's remotely plausible. I don't give a rat's ass how much time you have to work with. That's never going to happen. Not in a plausible scenario, right? And again, let's think about this from I have billions of years. All right, cool. That's fantastic. The shelf life of the sequence that you're trying to build is going to be days at best. So you don't have billions of years to come up with this sequence because it'll break chemically. It's going to break down. It's not going to happen to get to this point, right? And even if you say, I only need 50. Okay, cool. You still have to pick 50 numbers in a row correctly. And there's no intelligent agent, right? You're saying this all happened randomly with no intelligent agent.
Yeah, and therein lies their bias. They're willing to accept that wouldn't ever happen by chance.
Oh man. Okay, Beamsy is really getting dumber by the second. Okay, so they just pointed me towards John Naughton and his Why It's Dangerous to Liken DNA to Computer Code book. Okay, so I've read on that, and the why it's dangerous is that people will begin to think we can just hack it, and that there's dangers of biological threats and all sorts of crazy stuff. That is the threat, and why we shouldn't revert to it as just just think about it, just nothing like computer code, because we do when we'll start doing crazy stuff to ourselves. And that just shows to me that you, Beamsy, haven't actually read what you're talking about. It's very sad. Very, very sad. No, man.
It kind of suggests that we're more than just DNA.
Well, absolutely. And here's the other thing that I try
and
to
that there's something that's not as tangible. There's something of consciousnness that there's an ethical dilemma with messing with biology.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. And this is, I have to dumb this down for Beamsy as well. So Beamsy, the genetic code and the other codes that operate, the other biological codes, are vastly superior to our programs. Vastly superior. So you have to look at this from the perspective that the genetic code is greater than, but not less than, what we create right now in our computer systems. not less than. It does more than, but is not less than what we have created. And we are actively attempting as humans, we're trying to create systems that can do what biological systems do. Like, I don't understand how people have such a hard time grasping this. It is a well-known concept. And
I remember, I'm sorry, this is a little bit off topic, but it's related. There was someone in a comment section that I was talking to. I was saying DNA is more advanced, like as far as being a code, more advanced than any code that we've been able to come up with. And then basically their retort was, well, since we haven't been able to come up with that kind of advanced code, it must have arisen naturally. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I mean that's just the mindset of some of these people, I guess.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's shut your brains off time when you're confronted with facts that contradict your beliefs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So, by the way, so remember I said that I had I was aware of what he was talking about. So let's just share this real quick. Oh, there we go. There. Why it's dangerous to liken DNA to a computer code. John Naughton. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, I was aware of this, and I'm just going to prove beyond all doubt that Beamsy is full of bovine scatology and is an idiot. Okay, so let's see. It looks therefore as though we are on course for an explosion in bioengineering, the biological equivalent of what we now call software engineering. The visionaries of Silicon Valley are mad keen on it, perhaps because they think it will make death optional for them. After all, if life itself is just a code, well then, that's what the Valley does. So let's get on with it. Let's see. Okay, here we go. The trouble is that what is standard practice in software won't work in bioengineering. Biological code, like computer code, will inevitably have programming bugs in it for the simple reason that we've never found a way to write bug-free code of any complexity. As Schneider and I don't pronounce the guy's name is warned, unlike computer software, there's no way to patch biological systems once they're released into the wild, although researchers are trying to develop one. Nor are there ways to patch the humans or animals or crops susceptible to such agents. Stringent biocontainment helps, but no containment system provides zero risk. In other words, choosing to play God might not be a smart move for mere humans. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case that Beamsy is not only an idiot, he doesn't actually go and read the stuff that he claims supports his own position. And
yeah, you're quote mining Beamsy.
Yeah. Yep. I tell you what, guys, it really never ceases to fascinate me how the premise that I operate under, which is the difference between confidence and arrogance is being able to back up your BS, seems to be non-existent in the YouTube atheist world. I mean, I just don't get it.
Well, I would say Clubhouse atheists are a few steps worse than that from what I've seen so far. But I'm at a loss as well. I mean, might as well just consider them trolls at this point.
Well, yeah, and nothing's. I agree with you on Clubhouse, but of course, the Clubhouse is nothing compared to Discord. The Discord people are like a whole nother level of whacked out. But yeah, Greenie says he got as far as the title. Yep. Oh, so true. Can you believe that guy claimed that his professors directed him to John Naughton and why likening DNA to computer code is dangerous? Like, okay, let's see this. Quote mining is missing out on the aspect of the trial and error aspect of that quote.
No, quote mining is what you did by taking it out of context.
Yeah, Beamsy did not read that article, nor did he listen to what I read, nor did he comprehend what I read out loud. Did anybody else? Did everybody else recognize why what I read out loud directly contradicted the point that Memes he's trying to make? Or did I miss something here? Did I misinterpret that article?
It was pretty clear.
Yeah.
It's just we don't have like the foresight and the capability to mess with DNA.
Yep. But it was rather direct that it was a code. And we were going to hack it. And we're not wanting to address the fact that we wouldn't be able to account for all the variables and the potential bugs. Therefore, we didn't need to play God.
Right.
It was pretty blunt.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be able to see past 10 billion years, 15 billion years, right? Light can't reach us ever. It's impossible, apparently, according to them. So if this new telescope, and what if they actually do see further than 15 billion years? I wonder what they'll do then.
Well, there will be.
They already do see further than that. We already see. I think we see stars that are 40 billion years away, technically. With
that's 13.7 or whatever. Yeah, they say that's what they can see, but they also say that it's impossible for light to reach us past the 15 billion light year point. And once you get as far out as that light can never ever reach us. So if we keep seeing further and further, and they can judge these distances, even if a lot of these distances had a 300% or 400% inaccuracy, they'd still be, massive distances, incredibly massive, So, it's
Right.
these distances that can be measured, sort of thing. So what happens when they do look past that amount of space? Well, then they're going to back to on sort of saying, well, the universe must be older than we thought or something. I don't know. They have to, don't they?
I doubt that. I just think that they'll continue to evoke what they're already invoking, which is that space itself is expanding.
Yeah, but that should make it harder to see. Like, no, but light can't reach us past a certain point. They know that point. So if they see past that point, then they're going to. I'd love to see what would happen.
Right. I mean, they just modify the speed of the expansion. It's all post hoc.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Apart
right. The
from the
maths
fact-
is made
Yeah.
to fit the narrative and not the
Right.
narrative comes from the mathematics.
It's not a
In other words.
prediction. It's taking observations and pretending like they all fit together with your theory. And
Yeah.
that's apart from the fact that we see in like the furthest stretches of space, we see like developed, I think they're called like phase 3 nebula. I can't remember if that's what they're called.
Oh, yeah.
But essentially,
Yeah,
like we see galaxies, like whole galaxies, and
Yeah,
these
spiral ones.
and they're at being 80 to 150 billion years old.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so they should have they should have wound up.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
it's hard to-
because they say from the beginning is 15 billion years, and then they estimate that the size of the universe, or guesstimate that the size of the universe is 93 billion light years across. So they sort of even say that the universe has an end, because it has to. If it had a beginning and exploded at some point and started at some point, it had to have an end. It has to have an end somewhere. So it sort of all fits in with the Bible, that God lives outside the universe, outside time and space, in eternity, and that the universe is not infinite, but God is infinite, and so on.
My goodness, guys. This guy is so dumb. So this is Beamsy's video, right? And this is hilarious. He's such a moron. Let's listen.
But it's complete translation. Unless you can read binary, you have no idea what that says. I can read some of it, but I have forgotten most of my binary lessons, so I'm a bad person in that way. But this is a computer code. This is a binary source code. Both are a computer language.
Okay. Beamsy, I don't... Okay. The one on the left is a higher level language. Okay. The one on the left, the binary representation is a machine code. Okay. It's a lower level language. Okay. You translate the higher level language into the machine code. Okay. Like, you're an idiot and clearly don't understand the basics, dude. Like, the... did you... Okay, I'm going to guess that you went to maybe a boot camp, or heck, even if you went to university and got a software engineering degree, there's a very strong probability you didn't go into communication theory or go beyond the surface level. I don't understand. Like the OSI 7, dude, there's 7, like there's more than this, but there's like at least 7 layers of the information structure. And you go down to the physical layer, right? Where it's like going through a fiber optic cable or whatever, or it's in the CD, but like all there's different layers of it, right? And the higher level language is going to be translated into all these different, it's going to be encoded in all these different structures. Like, I mean, this is such basic stuff, dude. Like, I'm just, every time I hear atheists talk about this one's binary and this one's a computer code, this one's a language, it's like, yeah, the binary can be translated back into the higher level language, jackass. And every code doesn't have to have all of the things of every language, right? So if you're writing in G code and you're controlling X, Y, and Z axis, time, and element that's being utilized, like that's just G code. You're gonna have different commands than and things you can do with it than PHP, JavaScript, whatever language you want to use, man. Like this is not.
I want him
not
to go and write. I want him to go and write something that can be read like something that's the size of an encyclopedia that can be read both forwards and backwards and make perfect sense either way.
Let's see what else dumb stupid stuff this guy says.
One is what is written in by people, and one is what the computer understands.
Yeah. So what does the computer have to have, jackass? It has to have the decoder capability. And that means it has to understand both the source and the frickin' target of the code mapping that's being done in order to execute the frickin' function that is being derived from the higher level language into the machine code and then being processed by the computer. Like, this is such basic computer science, bro. I don't understand how you can sit here and you did a 36-minute video like talking about how I don't understand this stuff when you clearly don't understand the basics of how computers actually operate. You don't understand communication theory 101. It is very embarrassing, dude. Very embarrassing. You clearly don't understand code mapping, and all you ever learned, obviously, was some higher level language stuff. Oh, I could read a little bit of binary code. I learned it in school. I forgot what it means. Yeah, I mean, I really want to know how you defend yourself on this one in thinking that you can't have, I mean, you can turn any language can be turned into binary. That's kind of how codes work. And I'm assuming, Beamsy, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, that you understand what Turing complete means in relation to a code. And in case you missed out on this, the genetic code is recognized as being Turing complete. So that means it can be translated to any other code. Yeah. I mean, this is so sad. This guy's an idiot.
Yeah. But if it's so easy, like if this can happen in nature by mistake, then he should be able to write even like just 5 A4 pages of something coherent one way, and then we read it backwards, and it's coherent backwards as well. And because that's what DNA is. You can DNA can be read both ways coherently. So all of those billions of letters can be read one way coherently, and then they can be read backwards all the way coherently again. So, so go and try and do that. Go and you try and write something like that. Like this, that's just not even, billions of letters. Just make it 4 A4 pages, and let's see how easily this stuff can be put together.
When I took computer science back in high school, I remember we spent from the very start of that semester, our teacher instructed us to get into groups and to start working. So this was kind of like a group project where we would get a grade at the end of the semester, and we would, whenever we finished with the assignments for the day in that class, we would just spend the remainder of that time in the class just working in groups, and we were to design a simple program using MS-DOS on the computers to create something simple, but something that was functional, that had a pleasing aesthetics to it. So you could create a flashing image moving across the screen, or something similar. And we labored our asses off trying to coming up with something that was functional at the end. And that was the very simple, at the very basic level of the instruction output platform. I mean, we spent so much time and effort into that, and the slightest mistake, we had to go back and backtrack and to fix it. So I mean,
and you would have kept notes as you went, so you'd be able to go back
That's
through
right,
your notes and see, and backups of everything. So if anything got deleted, you go back, oh, okay, this, that, and the
That's
other
right.
one,
Yeah, so we wouldn't have to start from scratch.
fix this.
That's right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I've done that before, mate. Ask Matt. I mean, I deleted like 300 or 400 pages out of a book once, and we only had it in a PDF, and we couldn't transfer it back over, so I had to do it all manually, and it took ages. So I sort of got a small feeling on what programmers go through.
Okay, so if anybody wondering what I got on my screen here, this is from a paper, but they're like analyzing the genetic code, right? And the genetic code is an instantaneous or prefix code, which is the hallmark of variable length codes. This implies unique decipherability, since no binary string coding an amino acid of length 4 or 5 bits will appear as a prefix in the binary string encoding for any other amino acid. For example, the binary string 0011 coding for ALA will not appear in the first 4-bit substring of any of the 5 or 6-bit strings. Similarly, for instance, no amino acid with a 6-bit code will start with 00010 or 00011, which represents GLU and ASP respectively. Okay, now let's go over here. For example, the binary sequence, and they've got it listed out here, right, can be uniquely decoded as, and now it's showing what these strings represent and are equal to, right, in terms of the amino acids that they represent, right? You can apply this exact same logic to the codons. Like this is, and it goes on to say, it is worth noting that the Morse code referred to earlier is a variable length code, which is not a prefix code, representing dot by 0 and dash by 1. The letter E is coded as 0 and the letter T as 1. But the letter A is coded as 01 without delimiter between characters. A can be read as ET. I mean, this is, Beams, you have to think about this for yourself for just a second, right? You can't be doing code comparison analysis if the things you're comparing are not codes. Okay, and like the title of this paper, by the way, is Information theory and algorithmic complexity, applications of linguistic discourses and DNA sequences, complex systems. And this is part one, efficiency of the genetic code of DNA. Like, and they go into the whole thing of like, why Shannon, the starting sentence. One of the earliest applications of Shannon's information theory is to linguistics, or specifically to language discourses. Shannon's theory deals with efficient coding of strings of symbols or message for communication. The use of the term symbols, strings, instead of the more familiar words and sentences is deliberate. It reflects the fact that sequence carries no meaning as normally understood in languages. The theory provides efficient coding procedure for symbols using binary digits 0 and 1 that is determined only by their relative probabilities of occurrence of the symbols. I mean, this is like, you can't write this sort of paper if there isn't if information theory, communication theory, code theory does not apply to something. It's like there's just no way around this. But anyway, all right, let's do last words. It's been going for 3 hours and 45 minutes. I gotta go to sleep.
Well, I'll just say I've seen where they go once you take them to this level. They'll just simply question what it is for something to be even considered a code. They'll challenge, well, the genetic code isn't really actually a code at all. It's just random information, to which I would personally consider a code to be that which conveys function. If it's functional, it's a code. If it's not, then it's just random noise. I saw, well, I didn't see it, but you mentioned the debate that you had with a lady once who likened the code to random puzzle pieces coming together, and it just gets to a point of incoherency, and it really, there's nothing much to be said after that. So yeah, I mean, everything we've gone through tonight for any honest person should be more than enough, and if not, then it's pointless to really spend any more time trying to convince them. You're not trying to convince someone who is willing to accept a matter of fact. They're in denial of it, and there's nothing we can do about that. So
it's very true.
Yeah. So thank you guys again for the chat. I found it to be very helpful, and I hope anyone in the audience who has any questions, please feel free to ask these guys, because they know what they're talking about, and they can help give you a better understanding of exactly where the evolutionary model falls flat on its face. They'll tell you the things that you won't hear about in the high school and college courses, and if you're honestly seeking, you'll be given. These guys can give you everything you need to understand just exactly what the truth is. So I'll say good night, and thank you guys.
Hey, what's your YouTube channel link?
I don't really have much on my channel. It's just a bunch of stuff that I upload in order to save space on my hard drive.
That's all right.
I used to upload a lot of like UFC fights and all of that, but then the copyright got taken out and all of it. Yes, I'm not a professional content creator, but I appreciate your interest. But anyway, the channel name's the same as my screen name.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll say thank you guys again, and wish you all a good night. I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. So I'll say God bless. Take care.
Have a good one, man. Same to you.
God bless. Good night.
Jason, any last words?
No, just God bless and good night. That's it.
Appreciate it. Wesley, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I just maybe if Beamsy is at all interested, he can look at the debate that I think it was on Modern Day Debate with John Perry of Stated Clearly versus D-Jump. I find that debate fascinating because Neither of them are religious or believe in God or anything like that. Yet by the end of the debate, T-Jump, who is by no means someone who's easily convinced, ends up agreeing with stated clearly that yes, DNA is a code. So you might want to look at that and maybe refute it the best you can if you still aren't convinced.
Well, and there's also
I'd find that interesting.
Well, and glad you brought that up, because there's also the interview that John Perry did with Richard Dawkins on this topic, where they went into great detail, because John Perry continued to be flabbergasted that all these YouTube atheists still were running around claiming it wasn't a code. So they did like a 2.5 hour discussion breaking down why it actually is. It's a rather fascinating watch. They go into great amounts of detail, and just like, I don't understand what is wrong with all these atheists on YouTube who don't want to accept that it's a code.
Yeah, I don't know. It just saying that it isn't a code and just being so dogmatic there just makes you look really dumb, to state it bluntly. It just makes like it's sort of a red flag. It shows that you're not willing to look at the evidence with an open mind, frankly. So,
yep.
Do better, try better, Beamsy.
Yep. And stop throwing around your supposed degree in biology, because the fact that you claim to have one and still make these arguments just makes me really doubt pretty much everything you say.
Yeah,
and
like every major biologist would. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like every major biologist would tell you that DNA is information. I mean, for Pete's sakes, Richard Dawkins, who was the author of The Selfish Gene, which is one of the most influential, like, neo-Darwinian books of our generation, of our time, still is. He is one of the first people who will say that DNA is a code. So you gotta stop being ridiculous.
Yep. But hey, Beamsy lives in his own fantasy land, and he doesn't understand the difference between a higher level language and a machine code, while simultaneously claiming there is no genetic code and that I don't understand what I'm talking about. It's like, you can't make this stuff up, folks. You can't make this stuff up. Atheists are the ultimate comedy show, and it is. I have seriously been thinking about this for quite some time now, but I really am thinking about putting together a stand-up comedy set, just repeating the stupidity of atheists and the things that they say.
Goodness.
Like, I mean, just think about it, folks. Yeah, so the other night, I was having an interesting back and forth with this idiot named Beamsy, right? And he said that his professors had directed him over to John Naughton and his book on why comparing DNA to computer code was dangerous. And he tried to tell me that meant that it wasn't actually like computer code. But let me read a paragraph from this article to you right now. They read off that shit. And it's like, ladies and gentlemen, you can't make this stuff up. You literally can't make it up. They really are that dumb. It's really amazing. But anyway, okay, it's time to go to bed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for yet another Dumpster Fire After Show. And this one, most of the Dumpster Fire happened in the side chat with Beamsy. So thank you, Beamsy. I appreciate you being the spark to the tinder that is a late night Dumpster Fire. So appreciate you very much. And for the rest of you who have been able to witness the, once again, interesting and very profound separation from reality that is the Evo atheist, I hope as you use your critical thinking skills that still remain and have not been completely decimated by your desperation to avoid the obvious, that there is an intelligent agent that's necessary for your existence. I hope as you contemplate the information and all the pieces of evidence that are put forth, that ultimately, whatever conclusion you reach, whether or not it is that there is a designer required or otherwise, or you come up with some, hypothetical that can somehow explain this, I do hope whatever conclusion you reach is logical, plausible, and probable, and you use your brain. Have a good night, everybody.